Chapter 429. The power of this palm was shocking. It was as vast as a wave, wildly howling through the air. Space violently shook, unable to withstand this sudden attack. The violet gold figure appeared. This sudden attack was the shame of Snow Competition City. He didn't hold back at all. This was the full power palm of a second calamity expert. Only when it approached the two of them did they realize that the majority of its power was focused on Ning Chen's red bamboo of regret. Jin Jiaran was well aware that this palm wouldn't take this red-robed youth's life. But if he wanted to block this attack for someone else, he would have to pay a price. Treacherous and evil, you have no sense of shame. What a waste of the title of heavenly genius. Ning Chen was infuriated. His expression turned cold, and he moved, bringing red bamboo of regret to dodge this palm. His speed was so fast that it was difficult to see what had happened. Everyone present was shocked. When he had moved just now, not a single person had been able to clearly see him. Since you like to use martial prowess to suppress others, then there's no need for you to keep this body. As soon as he finished speaking, the red-robed youth vanished and reappeared in front of Jin Jiaran. His finger condensed into a sword. Ugh! With a pained groan, Jin Jiaran's sea of qi instantly collapsed. Wild true qi scattered, instantly destroying half of his meridians. This shocking and unbelievable scene caused the hearts of the heavenly geniuses of the 100 dynasties to surge. How was this possible? A second calamity expert had his cultivation crippled in just one move? Jiaran, two other young men from the second disaster hurried over. When they saw Jin Jiaran covered in blood, looks of grief and anger appeared on their faces. One of them suddenly turned to look at the red-robed young man and said in a cold voice, "Sir, don't you think crippling someone's cultivation is going too far? Excessive? I'm just returning his methods to him. If you think it's excessive, then do as you please," said Ning Chen indifferently. After saying that, Ning Chen no longer paid attention to these trivial matters. He glanced at red bamboo and calmly said, "Let's go to the next level." The stone door opened and 23 origin heavenly jades flew out. Ning Chen waved his hand and collected them. Just as he was about to put them away, a slender hand reached out and snatched them away. Knowing destiny reacted, and the two attacks collided. With a loud bang, both sides were pushed back half a step. The heavenly jade was shaken. One of them could not bear the aftermath of the battle between the two prides. It shattered and dissipated between heaven and earth. The pink-robed woman before him had a smile on her face. Her peerless beauty was unlike that of a mortal woman. She was more like a fairy who had descended into the mortal world. She was so beautiful that he dared not look at her directly. The bright king of Einan, the Lady Buddha of the present age, blocked the advance of the knowing destiny state. "Young master, it's not appropriate for you to take away all the origin heavenly jades by yourself," the woman softly said with a slight smile. A strange look flashed across Ning Chen's eyes when he saw the woman before him. A Buddhist disciple? Although this woman was not wearing a Buddhist robe, the aura that was faintly discernible during the battle earlier was clearly the unique saint power of Buddhism. After a brief confrontation, Jin Jiaran's two companions also stepped forward when they saw an expert making a move. True essence surged around their bodies, and their killing intent was not concealed at all. "It's so lively here, but since they're looking for trouble with the Jadoth Holy Land, let's join in the fun." As he spoke not far away, 3 young experts walked over. The person in the lead was dressed in a dark golden imperial robe. He had an extraordinary heroic spirit, and his cultivation actually faintly suppressed everyone present. King Xianyang. Ai Hongzhu's expression changed slightly. It was actually him. Xianyang was the younger brother of the Migres imperial lord. Ever since he had started cultivating, he had never been defeated. He was deeply valued by the Migres imperial lord. He was a true genius among geniuses. With the appearance of these 3, the situation instantly changed. The bright king of Einan's smile grew even wider. 1 against 5? Or with her, 1 against 6? Senior apprentice brother. Ai Hongzhu's face was filled with worry. No matter how strong her senior apprentice brother was, there was no way he could stop so many heavenly geniuses by himself. "Hongzhu, give me your sword," said Ning Chen calmly. His expression didn't change at all. AI Hongzhu didn't understand, but she still handed over the numbing fang in her hand. Ning Chun took the sword and condensed yuan with his fingers. He slowly drew it across the blade, and a blood-red light immediately rose. Thousands of sword intents converged on the sword, and its aura changed. The blood-red sword was surrounded by sword intents that didn't disperse. It was sharp and oppressive. Even from a distance, one could feel the powerful aura of the sword. Take the sword and go up. In 10 breaths we'll leave the tower. Ning Chun returned the sword and instructed. Soon after, he took a step forward and blocked the front. A cold glint rose in his calm eyes. The faintly discernible killing intent caused the hearts of everyone present to inexplicably sink. Senior apprentice brother, be careful. AI Hongzhu knew that she would only be a burden if she stayed, so she didn't hesitate and walked to the next floor. You think you can leave? Next to King Xianyang, an azure-robed man moved. He unsheathed his sword and moved, flying toward AI Hongzhu. At that moment Hong Yi also moved. 2 fingers formed a sword, and with a clang, the sword was restrained and couldn't move an inch forward. Your speed isn't bad, but unfortunately it's still too weak. With that, King Xuanyang's figure flashed forward. His heavy sword broke through 1,000 caddies, and the black sword fell with the force of a mountain. Ning Chun waved his hand and forced the azure-robed man back. Then he used his fingers to shake the sword. The moment the 2 moves collided, a boundless sword intent surged out. Immediately, a wave of sand rose several feet high. Seeing this, Jin Jiaran's 2 companions unsheathed their even wind and rainmaker swords and attacked together. The other person from the Migres dynasty waved his hand. The willow blade in his hand turned into a swift blade that chased after souls. 5 geniuses, 5 of the 3 disasters, joined forces to battle the phoenix body. Ning Chun calmed himself down, stepped to the side, and condensed his sword. Boundless sword intent rose around him, and his cultivation on the sword instantly erupted. Sword form sky-severing. The sky-severing sword swung out, and the space within 100 feet shook violently. A huge crack appeared, as if it was going to swallow the heavens and destroy the earth. King Xianyang received the sword, and with a bang, he retreated a few steps. His blood and qi surged rapidly. Wherever the sword wind passed, the wind and rain retreated at the same time. Sand and dust filled the sky. At the same time, the willow blade streaked across the void, and the extremely fast blade came at him again. The azure-robed man followed with his sword. Blue frost appeared on the sword, and the cold air was oppressive. Ning Chun received the sword and blocked the blade. The sharpness on his finger moved, and the 2 people in front of him were pushed away. As the 2 retreated, King Xianyang went forward again. The heavy sword fell with unparalleled divine might, shattering the space one after another. The azure-robed man moved, and dodged the heavy sword. The wind and rain created a cold body, and the sharpness was driving people crazy. Sword form sky falling. Ning Chun retreated half a step, and with a flip of his palm, he pushed the 2 people away. Then, he condensed his yuan with his fingers. The sword intent around him soared into the sky, and the sky-falling sword appeared again. After a moment of silence, the boundless sword tip descended from the sky. The terrifying sword pressure was unstoppable as it cut down everything in its path. Amidst the rumbling and trembling, expanse after expanse of earth collapsed, destroyed by the boundless sword rain. Not bad. King Xuanyang's expression turned serious. He held the sword with both hands, and slashed in the opposite direction. With a boom, he met the sky-falling sword head-on. The other 4 people parried the sword in pairs, but when they saw Tsang Hong flying up, the 4 of them were injured at the same time, and they retreated again and again. It was a shocking battle. The heads were dyed red, and specks of dust were scattered, representing the clear mark of the enemy's defeat. The geniuses who were watching from afar were shocked. Where did this person come from? Why had they never heard of him before? Wei Gongyu and Nan Mingtian watched the battle with rapt attention. They were also amazed by the amazing sword intent. In terms of swordsmanship, there were only a few people in the world who could surpass this person. In front of the 2, Qi Yinxia's eyes flashed with brilliance. This person's attainment in swordsmanship was really shocking. In the battle, seeing that the 5 of them could not gain the upper hand, King Aaron revealed an incomprehensible smile. She took a step forward, and the Buddha's light was extinguished. In an instant, she was in front of the azure-robed man. She slapped out her delicate hand, and her saint power shook the sword edge. With a loud bang, the two strong forces collided, and the aftermath was endless. Seeing this, King Xianyang jumped forward and slashed down with his heavy sword, adding 30% of his strength. Quietly, a trace of blood slid down from the corner of Ning Chen's mouth. It was the first time he was injured in the battle. The azure-robed man danced, and the sword intent spread out, forcing the two of them back. Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at the Buddha lady in front of him. His eyes gradually turned cold. "Master, if you hand over Tianyu, I will not interfere," King Aaron said with a smile. "What if I say no?" Ning Chen said coldly. "Then I'll offend you." As soon as she finished speaking, the Wisdom King moved, and love tainted the world. The Bodhisattva lamented. No one knew what the Buddhist oddity was thinking and seeking. The peerless figure attracted a vision, and the Akalanatha appeared in the form of a woman. Ning Chen formed a sword with his fingers, and fought the Buddhist oddity head-on. His sword had no thoughts, and no desires. It was a pure sword, and its power shook the world. At the moment of the battle, King Xianyang joined the battle at the same time. His heavy sword broke 10,000 pounds, and his sword was on top of the heaven's pride. The wind makes rain, the willow blade, and the three famous swords followed, and attacked in unison, trapping the azure-robed man. The six of them took turns to fight. Ji Ming was full of courage, as he controlled his sword radiance. His sword will brought out streaks of red. His shocking combat strength shocked everyone present. "Your Highness," Bei Gongyu looked at the woman in front of him, and said seriously. Nan Mingtian also looked over, and the first light of golden dawn on his back was ready to be unsheathed. "Wait," Qi Yinxia said, refusing the former's request. She looked at the battle in front of her quietly, waiting for the scene she wanted to see. In the battle had reached its climax. The six of them worked together to fight knowing destiny, and wave after wave of attacks. The swords and sabers kept colliding, and with the help of the Wisdom King, the stalemate finally changed. With a tearing sound, the azure-robed man was torn apart, and a trace of blood flew out, blooming as the swords clashed. Sword form, breaking the mountain. The breaking the mountain sword forced the six people in front of him back. Ning Chen touched the wound on his left arm, and a red light flashed, and the wound closed. Fighting 1 against 6, 5 of the 3 disasters, and the unfathomable Wisdom King of AI ran. A half-step knowing destiny cultivator, finally showed signs of defeat. "I didn't want to talk about swords, but it's a pity." Things were unpredictable, and it was always difficult to get what one wanted. Ning Chen sighed, and the next moment, his eyes changed gradually, and the killing intent around him surged. After the battle, Wu Ho, who had sealed his sword, picked up his sword hard again. He clenched his right hand, and in the wild purple waves, a purple-gold divine sword fell slowly into knowing destiny's hand. "It's here." Qi Yinxia's eyes narrowed, and the scene she wanted to see finally appeared. The divine sword appeared, and knowing destiny held it. In an instant, endless sword pressure spread out, rumbling and shaking the world. Chapter 430. It was a shocking scene. The sword pressure surged endlessly, rolling up hundreds of feet tall waves. Prince Xianyang and the others, who were at the front, felt their chi stagnate as they retreated a few steps. Ai Ran was shocked. She squinted her eyes, and the jade hairpin in her hair was broken. Her hair was scattered, dancing in the sword wind. She seemed to have offended a powerful cultivator. But this was what made it interesting. In the next moment, the Buddha lady moved forward. Her slender hand shook the sky. Holy chi flowed around her body, and a dazzling sun appeared behind her. The sun shone brightly, and supported the Wisdom King's palm. Ning Chen held his sword horizontally and stood still like a mountain. The two attacks collided. Powerful shockwaves spread out endlessly. Heaven and earth collapsed. Sword form sky-shattering. The sky-shattering sword appeared again. Its power was completely different from before. Wherever the sword tip passed, the space cracked and spread rapidly until it reached thousands of feet away. Ai ran caught the sword. Her chi surged and the corner of her mouth was dyed red. She retreated 3 steps. Seeing this, Prince Xingyang jumped forward and pressed down with his sword. Back off. King of Hell opened his sword and purple light shone. Ning Chun waved his sword with the same momentum. They faced each other head-on. With a boom, the 2 swords collided. The ground sank 3 feet, and dust rose hundreds of feet. Prince Xingyang flew out. His arm couldn't bear the huge force. Blood flowed down and dyed his sword red. Prince Xingyang retreated. Willow Saber came at him quickly. The saber light was as fast as the wind. Before the afterimage fell, the saber had already arrived. Ning Chen's eyes didn't change. The red light disappeared, and he moved several times in an instant. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged more than 10 moves. His sword was faster, and went through Prince Xuanyang's body. Prince Xingyang was blown away. His blood spilled on the ground. The shocking battle gradually made people feel fear. Lu Feng, seeing that his fellow cultivator was seriously injured, the man in blue looked serious. He waved his sword and frost filled the sky. His true essence gathered in one sword. One move was enough to make people pay attention. The sword broke through the sky and reached knowing destiny. The purple divine weapon cut through the sky. In an instant, the sword broke and the frost scattered. Blood gushed out, dyeing the world red. The unbelievable ending shook the hearts of those who were unwilling to accept it. The person in front of them was actually so powerful that they couldn't see any chance of victory. Xianyang and Pingfeng Maker Rainmaker joined forces again. 3 swords, 1 to advance, 2 to defend, fighting knowing destiny state together. Senseless battles are truly disgusting. Did all of your swords come out because of this? Ning Chen's eyes flashed with coldness. The Yama's heavenly weapon in his hand changed its momentum. He held the sword with a backhand grip, and spun the sword to open the sky. He was an undefeatable opponent. He had far surpassed the limits of the younger generation. In the distance, the geniuses who were watching the battle revealed looks of shock. They did not understand what was going on. Could there really be such a terrifying genius in the world? However, no one knew that the geniuses that everyone envied had never belonged to knowing destiny state. They had been going against the flow all their lives, and did not know their own fate. They could only hold the sword in their hands tightly, and move forward step by step with no regrets. In more than 10 years, they had gone from a weak young man to an opponent of knowing destiny state. From the world's wisest man, Fan Lingyue, to the world's Buddha, to the world's invincible martial monarch. After that, there was the calamity of the 4 extremes, the everlasting night's attack on Xia, and even the chaos of the gods. Who would show any mercy to the younger generation? The glorious era of the 4 regions gave the geniuses of the younger generation time to grow. However, no one knew that in the distant divine land, knowing destiny state, Mu Qianshang, Xia Zi, and the others had been walking on the line of life and death from the very beginning. They had suffered thousands of hardships and difficulties, but they had never regretted or given up. Only Nan Mingtian and Bei Gongyu, who had experienced countless battles and matured, were able to see the true strength of this red-clothed youth. This was a sword for killing, not a sword for fighting. Fast, accurate, and focused. Each of his moves had no excess. Because of this, there was no flaw. If they wanted to defeat him, there was only one way, and that was to be faster and stronger than him. If they wanted to rely on luck and use strange moves, they would undoubtedly lose even faster. Nan Mingtian and Bei Gongyu were very clear that King Xuanyang's group of 5 had no chance of winning. Perhaps they had before, but from the moment Ning Chun grasped the sword and picked up the sword heart, there was no longer any chance. Nan Mingtian, can we block his attacks if we join hands? Bei Gongyu looked at the red-clothed figure in front of him. It's very difficult. He's too fast. Unless you and I enter the 3 disasters, and use our cultivation to suppress part of his speed, we'll have a chance, said Nan Mingtian calmly. Let's fight after the 3 disasters. Bei Gongyu's battle intent was difficult to conceal. In his life, such an opponent could only be chanced upon by luck. If he couldn't have a true battle with him, that would be too regretful. In front of the entrance to the 24th floor, there was a single person holding a sword. The 5 people in front of him had been defeated miserably. Their blood dyed the red sand, and their broken swords were stabbed into the ground, losing their luster. The situation had changed so quickly that no one was able to recover from their shock. Ever since the red-clothed youth had grasped the sword, the 5 heavenly geniuses no longer had any power to fight back. Just as everyone thought the battle was over, the silent bright King Ai Ran once more moved. Her figure flashed, and she stepped forward alone, no longer joining hands with anyone else. Her slender hand stirred up the wind and clouds. Ningchen calmed himself and held his sword with both hands. With a bang, he blocked the palm that had reversed the wind and clouds. The terrifying shockwaves instantly destroyed everything in the surroundings. Buddha Mountain's strongest Buddhist woman, in 1,000 years, had the appearance of a bright king. Behind her was a Buddhist wheel that illuminated heaven and earth. "Young master, what is your name?" Ai Ran's lips curled into a smile. There was no gratitude or resentment in their gazes. "Ning Chun," said Ningchen calmly. "Ai Ran will remember it." "Young master, please remember that my name is Ai Ran, Bright King Ai Ran." Ai Ran's true yuan surged, and the Buddhist wheel's brilliance turned from gold to red. The bright king had entered a demonic state, and traces of blood red appeared in her eyes. Buddha and demon in the same body, the most extreme of opposites. Today the greatest variable of Buddha Mountain had appeared. She displayed her terrifying ability, and her blood-red eyes opened and closed. In an instant waves roared, and her demonic might soared covering the sky. With the addition of demonic essence, Ai Ran's figure instantly disappeared. She took a step forward, and her slender fingers were like the sharpest divine weapons. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed, and he raised his sword to block. The moment they clashed, the sound of metal clashing rang out, and a strand of black hair fell. Knowing destiny acted as if he hadn't noticed anything, he changed the direction of his sword and slashed down. Hong! There was another violent tremor as the 2 experts exchanged blows. Each move was faster than the last, and each move was stronger than the last. In front of the entrance, the tip of the sword and the 5 fingers continuously clashed. The aftershocks scattered in all directions, shaking the heaven and earth, and causing the ghosts and gods to be miserable. Qi Yinxia watched the battle quietly from afar. Her familiar beautiful face didn't have any ripples. She was the princess of Tianshu, and she feared no one. The aftershock of the battle on the top spread rapidly. The geniuses of the 100 dynasties retreated again and again, and the shock in their hearts was greater than the total shock in the past 10 years. Demonic 6 dust lust confuses the sky. Ai Ran formed a seal, and the surrounding demonic essence surged and shook, disturbing the mind. Her slender hands glowed, and her fingerprints blocked the sword. There was a violent tremor, and the sword light and demonic essence flowed wildly. The bright king had turned into a demon, and the Buddha had used demonic techniques. The supreme demonic might was driving people crazy. Knowing destiny waved his sword, and he didn't dodge or retreat, and faced the demonic techniques head-on. The shocking battle surpassed the limits. The 23rd level shook continuously, and there were signs of collapse. Seeing this, Ningchen frowned slightly. He didn't want to fight for a long time, and he blocked the demonic techniques with his sword. Then he retreated and jumped up. Sword form. Nirvana. The sword of Nirvana reappeared in the world after 10 years. The divine sword waved, and streaks of blood-red sword light appeared in the sky. The next moment, the sword intent surged out, shocking the 9 heavens. The collapse of the heaven and earth spread endlessly, and large areas of the void collapsed. The destructive sword moved horizontally, and everything trembled, and the heaven and earth mourned. Facing the destructive sword, Bright King Ai Ran's expression turned serious, and she didn't dare to be careless. The demonic essence around her rose to the extreme, and she used her strongest move. Demonic 6 dust Brahma Ghost Annihilation. Mo Yin shook his nirvana. After a short moment of silence, the most terrifying wild waves roared out. The momentum that could topple mountains and overturn seas instantly destroyed 100 miles of land. The entire 23rd level collapsed. The sky fell and the earth caved in, as though it was the end of the world. In the most extreme collision, Bright King was dyed red in the endless waves of dust, and he was defeated by half a move. "It's over." Killing intent surged around Ning Chun, and his eyes were emotionless. His sword was even more emotionless. When he used his sword, it was destined that today's battle wouldn't be easy. Sword form. Heavenly fall. Knowing destiny waved his sword, and the sword intent appeared again. Before he used his move, the strong sword pressure swept down, making people feel the aura of death. At this moment, Qi Yinxia, who had been watching the battle quietly, finally moved. Her beautiful figure flashed, and she instantly appeared in the sky. The moment the sword fell, she raised her hand to catch it. The surging sword intent spread endlessly. With a rip, the cloth on Qi Yinxia's left arm was torn, and a trace of blood appeared silently. Lord Ning, this world can't bear it anymore. How about we end this battle here? Qi Yinxia said calmly. Although the familiar face in front of him wasn't the girl he knew best, it still made the coldness in Ning Chen's eyes dissipate. He waved his hand, and the purple light disappeared, and the Yama sword disappeared. Thank you, Lord, Qi Yinxia said softly. Brother Ning, there's not much time left. Let's go up together. Bei Gongyu's figure flashed, and he appeared in the sky. He glanced at the heaven and earth that was about to completely collapse. On the ground, Nan Mingtian also walked over with his sword on his back, waiting for the three to go together. Not far away, the bloody light in King Aaron's eyes dissipated, and the demonic image disappeared. She returned to her Wisdom King body. Losing by half a move made her smile even wider. Perhaps she really had to seriously evaluate this young man's value. On the path of enlightenment, Buddha and demon clashed. She had to give up one of them. She hadn't decided whether to give up Buddha or demon. Perhaps one day, she would need to use this person's sword to cut off the image of Buddha and demon. Lord Ning, please remember my name. Perhaps we'll meet again in the near future. As she spoke, King Aaron crushed the competition pearl in her hand. Then her pink figure slowly faded, and in a flash she disappeared. Looking at her disappearing figure, Ning Chen's eyes flashed. Aaron Ming Wang, just who is this woman? Chapter 431. Thousands of miles away, the sovereigns of heaven and earth were quietly watching the competition to see if any surprising geniuses would appear. The 24th floor. The 24th floor of the competition tower lit up with a strange light, which meant that someone had stepped onto it. The sovereigns of heaven and earth were not surprised. There were many young experts in this generation, so it was not surprising that someone had stepped onto the 24th floor. Stepping onto it and passing it were two different things. The competition pearl would record anyone who could last 10 breaths on the 24th floor. What they really cared about was how many people would be able to step onto the next floor. Since ancient times, most of the competitions would stop at the 24th and 25th floors. They hoped that someone would be able to pass through this hurdle this time. Within the competition tower, the scenery changed, and everything changed. The world was full of vitality. Birds and beasts chirped. It was like a paradise. The geniuses appeared, and everyone was on guard. Those who could reach the 24th floor were basically all in the second disaster realm. Even in this glorious world, they could be considered geniuses among geniuses. Nan Mingtian, Bei Gongyu, your cultivations have not reached the 3 disasters. There is no need to force your way through. Leave after 10 breaths, Qi Yinxia said calmly. Yes. Nan Mingtian nodded. The princess' words were true. They might be able to hold on for another floor, but it would not be worth it if they damaged their foundations. Bei Gongyu glanced at the red-clothed young man not far away, and an unconcealable desire to battle flashed through his eyes. He really wanted to fight him right now, but unfortunately, he was still unable to achieve the same level of control as the red-clothed young man. Although he could still fight above his cultivation level, it was very likely that it would bring him quite a bit of backlash. Roar! A shocking roar resounded through the sky. 9 heavens changed and 4 totems appeared. The desolate era sacred beasts that had disappeared for a long time reappeared. The dragon, tiger, tortoise and sparrow, the 4 top divine beasts walked out of the totems. The 4 symbols divine seal, heaven and earth tribulation. They're here. Seriousness flashed through Qi Yinxia's eyes. Although she had passed through the 4 symbols divine seal once, she still did not want to face it a second time. The azure dragon roars to the sky, the white tiger rides the wind, the black tortoise shakes the earth, and the vermilion bird strikes the sky. The four symbols' divine seal trapped all the geniuses on the 24th floor. When the four symbols appeared, everyone's expressions turned serious. No one dared to be careless in the face of a great calamity. The azure dragon inhaled and exhaled, and the dragon's breath pressed down. The powerful aura was vast and mighty, and the wind howled furiously, and the mist shook the sky. The five prodigies below joined forces to receive the attack. With a bang, blood splattered everywhere, and they were forced back several steps. When they first exchanged blows, there were already signs of defeat. Everyone suffered the same fate, and the power of the four symbols was even greater than before, leaving everyone shocked. How could this be? The geniuses were shocked. The power of the four divine beasts was much stronger than when they were undergoing their tribulations. Brother Ning, let's part for now. In the future, when the northern palace ascends to the three disasters, we will continue the unfinished battle. Before he disappeared, Bei Gongyu looked at the red-clothed young man not far away and said seriously, "We'll be waiting." Ning Chen replied calmly. In the next moment, Nan Mingtian and Bei Gongyu disappeared. Almost at the same time, several other figures disappeared and left the tower. The black tortoise sacred beast raised its head and roared furiously. Its two front legs, which were like pillars, stomped the ground, shaking the mountains and cracking the earth. The scene of the end of the world was shocking. The vermilion bird screeched, and divine flames burned the plains. The destruction of the world appeared. The most terrifying calamity was unbelievably powerful. The white tiger swept past, and its claws glowed with light. The power of metal was unparalleled and unstoppable. A prodigy couldn't dodge in time, and his sword was broken. His arm was sent flying, and blood splattered everywhere. In a dozen breaths' time, there weren't many people left in the competition tower. After witnessing the power of the four symbols God-sealing tribulation, the prodigies of the 100 dynasties made a prompt decision and chose to leave without hesitation. Although the ranking of the competition tower was important, their lives were more important. The pressure of the four symbols God-sealing tribulation became heavier and heavier. There were very few people left. As far as the eye could see, the area within 100 miles was empty. 10,000 miles away from the competition tower, a strange look flashed across the eyes of the heaven and earth supremes. What's going on? Why did they all come out? Although this tribulation was difficult, these people who had reached this step were all extraordinary. They shouldn't be so weak. Inside the competition tower, the four symbols sealed the sky. The road ahead was blocked, and the three calamities stopped. It was difficult for the prodigies to move forward. Knowing destiny had sinned and killed millions of people, when he raised his sword again, he couldn't suppress his killing intent. The competition tower couldn't tolerate it, and the strongest calamity descended to punish the sinners. The red dress was extremely fast. Many shadows flashed past, avoiding the sharp edge of the great trial. Unknowingly, most of the attention of the azure dragon, white tiger, and vermilion bird had shifted to knowing destiny. The dragon's breath, sharp metal, and divine fire were everywhere. On the other side, Qi Yinxia was facing the Xuanwu sacred beast alone. With a flip of her hand, the supreme martial art of the emperor's celestial scripture appeared. The rumbling shook the heavens and the earth. The sacred beast's power was extraordinary. The calamity derived from the great path already had some of the power of a real desolate ancient sacred beast. It shook the wind and clouds and frightened gods and ghosts. Qi Yinxia was dressed in light yellow. She waved her hand, and purple gas was vast and mighty. She faced the Xuanwu sacred beast head-on. Wave after wave of dust spread out, destroying everything in her path. Eastern purple glow. Seeing the extraordinary power of the Xuanwu sacred beast, Qi Yinxia activated her vital energy. Her clothes fluttered, and purple gas surged out, illuminating the 9 heavens. The Xuanwu sacred beast roared angrily. Its snake head opened and black light spread out. The two attacks collided, and there was a loud bang. Between the two, the ground cracked, reaching dozens of miles away. The sacred beast formed by the calamity flickered for a while, but in the blink of an eye, it returned to normal without any change. Qi Yinxia squinted her eyes. It was really resistant. Although the Xuanwu sacred beast's attack was average, its defense lived up to its reputation. Just when the battle was in a stalemate, the azure dragon, white tiger, and vermilion bird in the distance completely shifted all their attention to red. Red light flashed, and the phoenix reappeared quickly, avoiding the joint attack of the three sacred beasts. It was said that when the world was first created, everything was born. The phoenix was the leader of the birds, and the Kylin was the leader of the beasts. Later, the phoenix and Kylin disappeared, and the four symbols appeared, guarding the four directions of the world. Because the phoenix and the vermilion bird looked alike, there was also a legend that the vermilion bird was the phoenix that had disappeared. However, each legend had its own version, and no one could verify it. Today, the phoenix and the four symbols met, and the vermilion bird fought knowing destiny, proving the legend of the ancient times. Divine fire burned the plains, and the indescribable scene of burning the world turned everything in the path of the vermilion bird into a sea of fire. However, the phoenix fire around red suddenly rose, and the vermilion bird's divine fire could not get close. It was blocked out instantly. Looking back again, the phoenix appeared quickly, and its red dress flickered. In an instant, it was in front of the vermilion bird, and its sword finger swept out, sealing its soul. The sword radiance was so fast that it was shocking. The vermilion bird could not avoid it, and the sword intent went through. It cried sadly and gradually dispersed. When the vermilion bird disappeared, the connection between the four sacred beasts made the other three sacred beasts roar in grief. The azure dragon and white tiger joined forces again to kill the sinful human. You are not the real four sacred beasts, so you can't hurt me. Disperse. Knowing destiny waved his hand, and a divine weapon appeared. He held the sword in one hand and slashed. Suddenly, a horrifying sword radiance broke through the air, and a 1,000-foot storm tore the world apart. With a loud bang, the azure dragon and the white tiger both dispersed and disappeared from the world with a roar of unwillingness. The three sacred beasts disappeared, leaving only the black tortoise that Qi Yinxia had suppressed but could not kill. Ningchen looked away and observed for a moment. He waved his hand, and a drop of the black tortoise's blood flew out and fell on the Yama sword. The next moment, red disappeared, and when it appeared again, it was in front of the black tortoise. The divine sword penetrated its body, and the black tortoise trembled. The blood dispersed, and it quickly absorbed the memories and origin of the black tortoise. In a flash, the blood condensed again, and fell into knowing destiny's hands. Thank you, Qi Yinxia said softly with a strange look in her eyes. You're welcome. We're just taking what we need, Ningchen said calmly. Mr. Ning, have you always been so unapproachable? Qi Yinxia said calmly. Her tone did not change, as if she was talking about a normal fact. Ningchen was silent. After a long time he said, I'm sorry. You don't owe me anything. You don't have to say these words. I just want to say that we did not owe each other anything in the past. If we can be friends, it's better than being enemies, Qi Yinxia said calmly. You're really different from her. A complicated look flashed in Ning Chen's eyes. Then he sighed softly, put away his sword, turned around and walked to the next floor. The military advisor of Beimeng, who had once been the champion of civil and military affairs, looked down on everyone in the world. Perhaps he had never had a friend in his life, and he would never say these two words to anyone. It was not arrogance, but because it was lonely at the top. Did he count? He did not know. Looking at the figure of the former leaving, Qi Yinxia narrowed her eyes slightly. Just now, the scene in front of her was exactly the same as when they first met. But who was that she? Brother. In the midst of the devastation, a delicate girl coughed up a mouthful of blood. Looking at a young man in coarse clothes who was also seriously injured not far away, she staggered forward and supported the latter. Xian'er, this competition pearl is for you. Go out of the tower. The young man took out his competition pearl and forced it to his younger sister. The corners of his mouth curled up with a tired and gentle smile. Just now, he saw that Xian'er's competition pearl was destroyed by the white tiger divine beast. Fortunately, his competition pearl was still there. Brother, what about you? Tears appeared in Ling Xian'er's eyes. Ah, of course I'm going to continue challenging the tower. As long as I can break the record, I can leave. Ling 19 forced a smile. Then Xian'er will accompany brother in challenging the tower. Ling Xian'er glanced at her brother's right arm that had disappeared from his shoulder. She wiped away the tears in her eyes and smiled through her tears. She knew that her brother was just comforting her. But since they were going to die, then the two of them would die together. That way, they wouldn't be lonely on the road to the Yellow Springs. The cruel competition and the rare warmth caused Ningchen to stop and look at the two people not far away. With a wave of his hand, he threw his competing edge bead over. You only have one life. Cherish it. As soon as he finished speaking, Ningchen didn't stay any longer. He strode forward, heading to the next floor of the Tower of Competition. Ling 19 looked at the competition pearl that had flown into his hand. A moment later, he came back to his senses. Just as he was about to speak, he saw that the red-robed figure in front of him had already disappeared. Chapter 432. Outside the tower, the sun rose and set. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Most people had come out and were standing outside the tower, waiting for the final result. Inside the inn, the shopkeeper was fiddling with the abacus, calculating the accounts. After a long time, the abacus shook and the calculation beads returned to their places. Little girl, I'm going to the tower to watch the fun. Do you want to come? The shopkeeper looked at the board and dazed Ruoxi and asked. Yes. Ruoxi came back to her senses, and a touch of joy appeared on her face. Carriage fee, 50 taels of silver. The shopkeeper casually plucked out a calculation bead. Ruoxi softly nodded and took out another silver ingot. It was really dark. In these 7 days, she had almost spent all her savings. The shopkeeper put away the silver and called the waiter to prepare the carriage. Then, he locked the cabinet where the silver was stored. One lock wasn't enough, so he added another. Shopkeeper, are you really a half-step perfection expert? Ruoxi looked at the shopkeeper with disbelief. Did the young master see wrongly? How could a half-step supremacy be so stingy, black-hearted and suspicious? What's wrong with being an expert? Don't experts need to earn money to support their families? The shopkeeper locked the cabinet and got up. Then he looked at the waiter outside and said, Let's go. It's a bit far. If we don't hurry, we won't be able to make it before dark. Ruoxi nodded and no longer said anything. She quietly followed behind. Floor after floor of the tower lit up. In the towering tower, someone had already reached the 25th floor. As night fell, a carriage came from the distance. Ruoxi got off the carriage in front of the tower, and her beautiful eyes searched the crowd. There's no need to look. He's not here. He shouldn't have come out yet. The shopkeeper walked forward and calmly said. At this time, the 26th floor of the tower also lit up. The geniuses in front of the tower were surprised. Someone had actually reached the 26th floor. In the distance, the Supreme's expressions also became dignified. 26th floor. This generation's youngsters weren't bad. The strongest person in ancient times had once reached the 27th floor and stayed there for nearly an hour. It wasn't until he was about to reach the 28th floor that he was sent out. It was a pleasant surprise that someone in this generation could reach the 26th floor. Under the silent night, everyone was looking forward to it. They knew that the final result would be out soon. Senior brother. In front of the pagoda, a worried look flashed across Yin Hongzhu's eyes. She and Shui had come out too early. If the Jadoth Holy Land wanted to get into the top 3, the pressure on her senior brother could be imagined. Someone reached the 27th floor. Just as everyone was waiting, the 27th floor of the Tower of Competition suddenly lit up. Instantly, everyone was shocked and could no longer remain silent. At this moment, the faces of the utmost exalted who were tens of thousands of miles away also revealed strange looks. One of them waved his hand and tore open the void, entering it. This time around, it was his turn to be in charge of the 100 Empire competition. Initially, he didn't want to show himself. However, it seemed like he had no choice but to do so. Brother, will he be all right? The red-clothed young man had given them the sharpshooter pearl. If something happened to him because of this, she would feel guilty for the rest of her life. I won't. Ling 19 spoke solemnly. That person was so strong, he would definitely be able to survive. The 27th floor lit up. 1 breath, 2 breaths. 15 breaths later, the light in the void disappeared, and a beautiful woman in light yellow clothes was sent out. The corner of her mouth was dyed red. She was clearly injured. It's the princess of Tianshu, Qi Yinxia. Among the crowd, someone recognized the beautiful woman in the sky and said in surprise. Emperor Qi was already a half-step up most exalted cultivator, who was infinitely close to the peak of the half-step up most exalted realm. Now his daughter was as talented as Emperor Qi. Didn't that mean that there would be 2 utmost exalted realm cultivators in the future? What an incredible girl. The shopkeeper smacked his lips and said, "Were the young people nowadays so scary?" It made him, an old man, blush with shame. In the central heavenly court of Tianshu dynasty, Emperor Qi was standing in the middle of a palace, looking into the distance. He was smiling happily. His daughter didn't disappoint him. The light hasn't disappeared yet. There's still someone on the top. After a brief moment of shock, everyone suddenly noticed that the tower of competition, that should have dimmed down, was actually still shining with a strange light. And it was extremely dazzling as it reflected the bright moon of the 9 heavens in the night sky. Brother Ning didn't come out with him? Asked Bei Gongyu, looking at the woman in front of him. It's not that he didn't come out, but that he couldn't. Qi Yinxia looked back at the 27th floor of the tower with a dignified expression. He had given the competition pearl to someone else. Was it on impulse? Or was it because he had absolute confidence that he could reach the 28th floor and break the record? Young master. Seeing that her young master hadn't come out yet, Ruashi's eyes flashed with worry. She had heard that the 27th floor of the Tower of Competition was a forbidden area, that even the peak of the 2nd calamity couldn't pass. Only those who had reached the 3rd calamity could pass it. Don't worry, your young master isn't ordinary. He'll be fine even if something happens to him, said the shopkeeper indifferently. On the 27th floor of the Tower of Competition, the woman in red walked alone. All the creatures under her sword had been annihilated. Her broken hairband was nowhere to be found. Her long black hair danced in the wind like a devil. Who could it be? Seeing that there were 2 geniuses who could reach the 27th floor of the Tower of Competition in the same generation, the headmasters and sacred leaders of the various sects looked in the direction of the Tower of Competition with strange expressions. This kind of young cultivator undoubtedly had the potential to reach the utmost exalted realm. They should try their best to win him over. Send someone to the Tianshu dynasty to deliver a great gift. Also, when the person on the tower comes out, immediately send someone to win him over. Yes. At the same time, countless great sects made the same decision. The difference between a great sect having a utmost exalt and not having one was like heaven and earth. Existences of this level were too rare. If they could win him over before he fully matured, it would naturally be the best result. At the entrance of the 28th floor, the stone door rumbled open. 27 origin heavenly jades flew out. Hongyi waved her hand and collected them, then stepped into the next floor. The 28th floor? How can he be so fast? Thousands of miles away, the Supremes floating in the void opened their eyes. They were filled with disbelief. It had only been 2 hours, but he had already passed the 27th floor. How was this possible? With a crack, another supremacy tore open space and stepped in. In front of the Tower of Competition, the shopkeeper narrowed his eyes. This kid was truly abnormal. A 5th calamity cultivator had entered the 28th floor. It seemed there would be a huge earthquake in Nanling. "Little girl, is your young master married?" asked the shopkeeper. "No," Ruashi replied. Suddenly she felt that something was wrong. She tilted her head and asked, "Shopkeeper, why are you asking this?" "Nothing, I have a granddaughter. She seems to be quite suitable for him." The shopkeeper replied casually. Ruashi really didn't know how to answer. Back then, even the eldest grandson couldn't make her young master bow his head. If there was really someone who could persuade her young master to get married, she wouldn't have any objections. "Still not coming out?" Qi Yanxia hid the shock in her eyes and whispered, Nan Ming, what is the ranking of the Yuheng Holy Ground now? Bei Gongyu asked. Fourth. Except for the princess, everyone else was sent out before the 25th floor. You and I came out from the 24th floor, and the princess reached the 27th floor. She is currently ranked first. However, there are two great sects in second place. One is Myriad World Mountain, and the other is unknown. It should be an ancient martial arts family at the end of the 100 dynasties. Nan Ming replied. Ling family, a famous swordsman from 1,000 years ago. Later on they declined. Qi Yanxia said calmly. She looked at the siblings in front of her. It looked like the Ling family was going to rise again. Although the two of them were lucky enough to survive with Ning Chen's competitive edge pearl, and barely lasted for 10 breaths on the 25th level, sometimes, luck was also a part of one's strength. Could it be that Brother Ning wants to help the Yuheng Holy Ground get a place in the top 3? Bei Gongyu's eyes flashed. It seems so now. Nan Ming Tian nodded. The girl named Jian Shui Air from the Yuheng Holy Ground came out from the 21st floor. This hole was not small. It would be very difficult to make up for it. The 29th floor. Suddenly among the crowd, there was an exclamation. The 29th floor of the competition tower, which towered into the clouds, was lit up. In an instant the world was shocked. In the silent wilderness, a man in black clothes and a black hat walked over. He was the first swordsman of the sect of life extermination, a top cultivator who even the headmasters of the various sects were afraid of. Tonight, for Mei Yingshua's life, he also stepped on the road to the north. Although he didn't care about Mei Yingshua's life or death, a life had a price. The murderer had to pay a price that satisfied him. The price of a life was naturally paid with a life. That was only fair. On the 29th floor of the competition tower, in the white fog, Hong Yi came with a sword. After walking up the stairs, she stopped and looked at the stone door in front of her. A flash of light appeared in her eyes. To go or not to go? After a short pause, Hong Yi no longer hesitated. She flipped her palm and opened the stone door. In the next moment, the last door of the Three Disasters realm opened with a rumble, shocking the world. At that moment, the Supremes of the Southern Tomb finally couldn't sit still anymore. They tore open the space and immediately rushed towards the competition tower. No matter how long this young man could last on the 30th floor, when the door opened, it was no longer important. Unbelievable. In front of the competition tower, the shopkeeper sighed softly. What a shocking young man. In the imperial palace of Tianshu, in the central heavenly court, Emperor Qi walked out and disappeared. Buddha is merciful. In an ancient city 1,000 miles away, a Buddha in a white robe appeared. Looking at the competition tower in the distance, his merciful Buddha's eyes were filled with emotion. The Tao was declining, and the devil was growing. If this young man continued to grow, no one in the human world would be able to control him. Under the moonlight, the Buddha walked towards the north step by step. His white hair danced in the wind. His ordinary and peaceful face didn't have the slightest bit of selfishness. The most benevolent Buddha couldn't bear to see another killing in the human world. For the first time in 100 years, he left the ancient city. Knowing destiny's greatest danger, the Supremes of the human world came personally to kill. Step by step, they gradually disappeared into the moonlight. Chapter 433. The 30th floor of the Tower of Excellence represented the final floor of the Three Disasters. Red Clothes slowly walked over, her long hair fluttering in the wind, her killing intent surging. At the same time, the clouds in the 9 heavens changed. Red light gathered and thunder filled the sky. A red figure walked out. It had the same face and the same sword. In an instant, the killing situation began. With a clang, the two swords clashed. Was it fast? It was so fast that the eyes couldn't see it. It was so fast that death was imminent. In the world of competition, the final guardian of the Three Disasters wasn't the heavenly punishment or the demonic calamity, but the test of oneself. The clanging of the swords became faster and faster. One was fast, and the other was even faster. It was hard to tell which was real and which was fake. Only the winner could reach the peak. Sword style heavenly fall. Sword style heavenly fall. The same sword style fell from the 9 heavens like rain. The earth shook as if it was suffering from a heavenly calamity. Within 10 miles everything collapsed. There was no place left intact. After the rain of swords, the 2 swords clashed again. 2 pairs of cold eyes passed by each other. Black hair fluttered. Before they landed, the swords turned around and clashed again. The opponent was like a mirror. There was no weakness. Her sword was swift and fierce, without the slightest hesitation. The strongest test was to prove one's knowing destiny heart. Sword style mountain breaking. The mountain breaking sword could destroy the heavens and the earth. Its power was heavy like a mountain. The mirror image wielded her sword at the same time. One sword broke the mountain. The extreme collision caused the earth around the 2 to rise and collapse. The terrifying shockwaves were maddening. It was an unimaginable battle. The 2 swords clashed continuously. Purple light and blood light illuminated the 9 heavens and the moon. The swordsman's heart never wavered. Outside the tower of competition, everyone waited quietly. 2 hours, 4 hours. No one knew how long they had waited, but no one had walked out of the dazzling 30th floor. The 31st floor, which symbolized half a supremacy, had also not opened. Why is it taking so long? From night to morning, from morning to noon. Everyone was shocked. They didn't know what was going on. Inside the Tower of Excellence, the 2 of them had fought fiercely for an entire night, but there was still no clear winner. The tireless mirror image seemed to have an inexhaustible energy. On the other side, knowing destiny's phoenix origin was activated. Every bit of energy was controlled perfectly. Similarly, the phoenix origin was inexhaustible and showed no signs of fatigue. The 2 figures were unbelievably powerful, surpassing the limits of their realms. Move after move, sword after sword, sword after sword. Before one move was made, the other sword arrived. The annihilation-killing light flickered continuously. Sword style. The 2 leaped up and raised their swords again. Nirvana was about to come out. Suddenly, at this moment, knowing destiny's figure disappeared. In one step, he appeared in front of the mirror image. His sword passed through the mirror image, but he didn't move. The next moment, the sword returned. Knowing destiny held the sword, glanced at the figure in front of him, and turned to leave. With a bang, the mirror image scattered and disappeared between heaven and earth. It was as red as a star, blooming magnificently in the final moments of its life. If one had never died, how could there be nirvana? If one only studied the sword, they would never be able to comprehend the sword above the sword. In front of the entrance of the 31st floor, Red pushed open the door and waved her hand to collect the jade. This time she didn't go up again. Instead, she turned around and left. The instant light of the 31st floor disappeared. The 4 regions felt the same. The Supremes were shocked, and their faces were full of disbelief. Impossible. In front of the Tower of Competition, Red walked out. Looking at the shocked Red Bamboo and the others, she calmly said, "Let's go, it's time to go back." "Young master." Ruah, she wasn't interested in the result of the competition. She bid farewell to the shopkeeper, and immediately walked up the mountain. At this moment, a figure in black clothes and a black hat came from afar. After 2 steps, he was in front of everyone's vision. "You came out. It seems that I came at the right time." The black sword was unsheathed. Without any warning, it took a life and instantly arrived in front of knowing destiny. Ning Chen's eyes were cold. He put 2 fingers on the sword. An endless sword intent surged as he forcibly received the sword. With a loud bang, the clothes of the 2 of them fluttered wildly in the wind. Everyone present could feel the boundless killing intent from the swords of the 2 of them, as they fought without a clear victor. The first swordsman of the Gate of Extermination, Yishidu Qi Yanxia's eyes flashed with surprise. This is troublesome. This person is a powerhouse that even father doesn't want to provoke easily. Although his cultivation is only at the early stage of the 3rd disaster, he has killed people at the peak of the 3rd disaster. Assassins are different from ordinary martial arts powerhouses. They don't like to fight head-on. Compared to the title of the first swordsman, Fengdu's death god might be more suitable for this person. Stop. At the moment when the battle was about to start, the world suddenly shook. The wind and clouds gathered and 4 floating phantoms appeared. Their powerful aura shocked everyone present. Human supremes. Oh. Yi Shidu's mouth curved slightly. He waved his hand and put away his sword. Immediately, his body moved and quickly retreated. 10 days later, Yi Shidu will wait for you on Luofu Peak. If you don't come, Red Wu Lei will leave a corpse. The disappearing figure in black stayed at the end. Fengdu demanded lives and no one could escape. The sound reverberated in Ning Chen's ears, and his eyes flashed with murderous intent. In this case, this battle was inevitable. Buddha is merciful. The 4 supremes arrived together, but before they could speak, a peaceful Buddhist chant sounded in the distance. At the end of the line of sight, a white-haired Buddha in a white robe walked over. His face was gentle, and he held a Bodhi bead in his hand. Every step he took was steady, and he looked like the most ordinary monk. Bodhi Supreme. When the 4 saw the figure that appeared, their expressions sank. How could it be him? When Bodhi Supreme appeared, Buddha light appeared between heaven and earth, dispelling the heavy pressure between heaven and earth. Everyone's hearts were slightly relieved. Hangzhu Shui, you and Ruoshi go back to Yuheng first. Ning Chen saw the Buddha coming, and said with a solemn expression. Master, Ruoshi said with a worried face. Don't worry, it's okay. Ning Chen comforted, and then looked at Hangzhu beside him and said seriously. Hurry up, I won't be able to take care of you later. Senior brother, you must be careful. Hangzhu suppressed the worry in her heart. She understood that they were only a burden here, so she didn't stay any longer. She took Ruoshi and quickly left. Come back alive, Jian Shui said and quickly followed after him. Sinners please. Bodhi's heart was kind. In the face of great evil, he still gave the greatest respect. The prayer beads danced in the wind. The one that symbolized knowing destiny had completely turned black, and there wasn't much left. Bodhi Supreme, are you trying to intervene in the competition? The human sovereign in charge of this year's 100 Empire competition walked out, and looked at the Buddha in front of him, and said in a deep voice. The great evil of the world cannot be tolerated. My Buddha is merciful and cuts off karma to stop sin. Bodhi twirled his fingers and the sky shone. In an instant, the aurora of Buddha light spread endlessly, turning the surrounding 10 miles into an extremely pure land. The white hair of the Buddha fluttered in the wind. His calm face didn't carry any killing intent, but he gave off the heaviest pressure. At this moment, he surpassed the 4 sovereigns in the void. The 4 supremes' expressions darkened, as they quickly weighed the pros and cons in their hearts. Although they didn't know why this kid had offended the Supreme Bodhi, it wasn't hard to make a choice between a young man with the potential to become a Supreme, and a true peak Supreme. The space swirled, and the 4 sovereigns gradually faded away, no longer caring about this matter. After the 4 sovereigns left, 2 figures confronted each other in the center of the aurora of Buddha light. One had black hair in red, and the other had white hair in white. The sinner knowing destiny and the kind Bodhi Supreme. The 2 who were destined to be incompatible finally faced each other head-on. In the battle against the King of Hell, knowing destiny and Fan Lingwei destroyed the lives of millions of people in the Divine Continent with a single thought. Their sins were unforgivable. Sins would always be sins, and they wouldn't change for any reason. Ning Chen was clear in his heart, so he never refuted. However, it wasn't enough to take his life now. With a clench of his hand, the King of Hell's divine weapon fell from the void and entered knowing destiny's hand. Suddenly, the endless karma turned into raging waves and surged. Looking at the killing karma around the young man in front of him, that turned into a substance, Bodhi Supreme sighed softly, and didn't say anything more. He twirled the prayer beads around his finger, and used the Buddha art. Prajna eradicates sin, bury 10,000 demons. The move buried demons / bloomed with extreme holy light in the hands of the Buddha. The moment the move was executed, his red clothes moved, and a sword arrived in an instant. It was unbelievably fast. With a clang, the sword light collided with the holy light. Before the move was executed, the power of the backlash was as heavy as the 9 heavens. Knowing destiny's mouth was dyed red, and he turned back. A sword to block the move, but it brought a great burden to the phoenix body. The power of a sovereign was unpredictable. Sword-style skyfall. The 9 heavens sword fell, slaying Buddha and destroying gods. Terrifying sword chi fell from the sky, and the wind and clouds gathered, increasing the sword momentum. Amitba. With a Buddhist chant, the prayer beads in Bodhi's hand bloomed with holy light, rising and crossing the sky. At the same time, the falling sword fell and collided with the prayer beads. Suddenly, the void distorted rapidly, and cracks appeared. Extraordinary sword, what a pity! The prayer beads fell, and returned to Bodhi's hand. The sovereign slowly closed his eyes, and the move Sin Slash was executed. Boundless pressure swept out, filling the entire Aurora Buddha world. Bodhi's thought, forgive Sin Slash. A familiar move bloomed in the Aurora Buddha world, and the extreme power of Sin Slash spread out, swearing to kill all evil in the world. When the Buddha's light arrived, knowing destiny's eyes flashed with coldness, he turned his divine weapon and placed it on his left hand. Immediately, endless phoenix vitality rose around him, and the red phoenix fire broke through the 9 heavens. He was going to fight at all costs. Suddenly, a majestic purple chi came from the distant horizon. In the blink of an eye, the figure of an emperor appeared in front of him. He put his palms together and used the ultimate move, splitting the sky. Imperial celestial scripture, purple clouds illuminate the east. The purple clouds shook the Buddha's light, and the two extremes collided with a deafening explosion. The Buddha world suffered a calamity, and the sky collapsed. The terrifying aftermath destroyed the Aurora Buddha world in an instant, creating a flat road. Retreat! The sovereign was invincible. After leaving the central celestial court, Emperor Qi did not want to face such an existence. He took the young man behind him and quickly retreated. Seeing the sinner escape again, Bodhi frowned in the surging aftermath. He looked at the prayer beads in his hand, and a hint of confusion flashed in his eyes. This person's fate was not right. The first time was an accident, but the second time was somewhat abnormal. He did not expect this evil to be so difficult to kill. In the distance, the shopkeeper clapped his hands and turned to leave. Fortunately, he did not need to intervene. Fighting a sovereign was quite a difficult business, and he was very worried about whether the young man could afford the money. But then again, why did Yi Jingdu come here? Chapter 434. In the central palace of the Tianshu Imperial Palace, a red-robed man was recuperating with his eyes closed in a misty hall. Emperor Qi and Qi Yinxia were standing in front of him, waiting for him to wake up. Yinxia, have you made up your mind? Emperor Qi looked at the red-robed young man in front of him and asked. Yes. Qi Yinxia nodded without hesitation. I ascended the throne at the age of 21 and became the emperor of the Tianshu dynasty at the most dangerous time. I have been the emperor for 50 years and reached the half-step to the complete realm. Among all the half-step supremes, I seem to be the most likely one to reach the complete realm. However, only I know that I don't have the chance. Back then, in order to improve my cultivation as quickly as possible and free the Tianshu dynasty from being restricted everywhere, I overdrew my potential. Since then, the door to the complete realm has been closed. Emperor Qi looked at his daughter and said seriously, Yinxia, you are different from me. You have been practicing the Emperor Celestial Scripture since you were a child, and your foundation is solid. Plus, your talent is not inferior to anyone. You will reach the supremacy realm one day. However, you will have to go through tribulations, heavenly tribulations, demonic tribulations, emotional tribulations, and all living beings' tribulations. Among them, the emotional tribulations and demonic tribulations are the most difficult. If you choose to go through the emotional tribulations, you will have to fall in love first, and then cut off your feelings. Love is not something that can be changed by willpower. Since I have made up my mind, I won't regret it, Qi Yinxia replied. Emperor Qi nodded and looked at the young man in front of him again. He said, this man's talent is not outstanding. I don't know why he has such terrifying combat strength at such a young age. However, his heart is as firm as stone. Although he is not a fickle person, he is a stingy person. To be honest, he is not the right person to go through the emotional tribulations. Father, do you think there is anyone else in this world who is qualified to make me fall in love? Qi Yinxia asked calmly. Emperor Qi sighed. She was right. For Yinxia, except for the young man in front of her, all the geniuses of the 100 dynasties had been defeated. There are 3 more days before the battle between this man and Yi Xindu of the life extermination sect of Yuluo. The result of this battle is unpredictable. If this man can survive, I will not interfere with your decision, Emperor Qi said slowly. Thank you, father, Qi Yinxia said seriously. Hong Yi opened her eyes in the middle of the floating mist at the center of the hall. A blazing blood-red light flashed through her eyes before gradually vanishing. Seeing this, Qi Yinxia walked up and asked, How are you? I'm fine now. Ningchen stood up and responded. Soon after, he walked up to Emperor Qi and bowed politely. I have yet to thank Emperor Qi for your help. If it wasn't for your help, I'm afraid it wouldn't have been so easy for me to escape. It's nothing. Let's not talk about this for now. There are only 3 days left before the battle between you and Yi Shidu. Are you confident? Emperor Qi asked seriously. This person is different. There's only a 50-50 chance of victory. Before we truly fight, I don't know what the result will be, said Ningchen calmly. Yu Luo's reputation as the #1 swordsman of the life extermination sect wasn't just for show. Hearing this, Emperor Qi's lips curled into a smile. If he didn't know Yi Futian's age, he would have thought that Yi Futian was just being modest. However, after knowing Yi Futian's age, Yi Futian didn't know what to think. He had only cultivated for a dozen years, yet he possessed the strength to contend with the #1 swordsman of the Hua Luo life extermination sect. It was truly inconceivable. After all, Yi Shi had been the #1 swordsman of the Hua Luo life extermination sect for much longer than this kid had cultivated for. It could be said that Yi Shidu's swordsmanship had never been defeated in the entire Nanling. Even Emperor Qi wouldn't dare to say that he would win if he didn't suppress Ning Chen's swordsmanship with his half-step supremacy cultivation. I can see that you haven't used the sword for long. There are only 3 days left. Let Yinxia help you return to your peak state, said Emperor Qi. Thank you. Ning Chen didn't refuse and thanked him again. Yinxia, there's a formation in the central heavenly court. Don't worry, just do whatever you want. Emperor Qi looked at his daughter and said. Yes, replied Qi Yinxia. I still have something to do and need to leave for a while. 3 days later, I'll go to Mount Luofu to watch the battle. After saying that, Emperor Qi's figure gradually faded. In a flash, he disappeared before their eyes. After Emperor Qi left, in the central heavenly court, Qi Yinxia glanced at the young man in front of her. Without saying anything, she turned around and walked 10 steps away. Then she said calmly, Please, please. Ning Chun waved his hand and took out his sword. A purple divine blade fell from the sky. A powerful sword will surged and resonated with the heavens and the earth. The next moment the battle began. Vast vital energy rose. The battle in the heavenly court had begun. The Emperor's celestial scripture gathered the majestic fate of the central heavenly court. Qi Yinxia, in her strongest state, flipped her slender hand. Dense mist followed. She was like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. She was peerless and dazzling. Red clothes held the sword. The sword's edge was activated, and the red light was extinguished. The sword's edge was reincarnated several times. In a lonely pavilion on Mount Luofu, black clothes sat quietly. The sword on the stone table was filled with murderous intent. Today, the sword's edge would rise and Fengdu would take his life. The night was cold. As the night wind blew, the black clothes fluttered. Under the round hat, the cold face and eyes were emotionless. In the void, figures appeared one after another. Every one of them had extraordinary cultivation. Their powerful auras made people feel heavy pressure. Yishi did not seem to know. She was still waiting quietly in the pavilion. She was not anxious at all. At this moment, a figure in red walked slowly from afar. Her cold eyes reflected the colder sword. Ha, it's finally starting. On the other side of the void, the shopkeeper appeared. Looking at the battle that was about to begin, a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He had sold the news at a good price. He hoped that the battle between the two would be worth the price and not ruin his reputation. Did someone leak the news? Emperor Qi walked out and looked at the powerful auras floating around. He frowned slightly. It seemed that the value of this battle was no longer the life and death of Hong Wulei. "Where is Hong Wulei?" Ning Chen asked calmly in front of the pavilion. Yishi did not answer. She pressed her right hand on the sword on the stone table. A sword aura swept out, and the mountain wall not far away collapsed. A woman in dark red clothes appeared and fell down with the debris. In the void, Qi Yinxia's figure flashed. She instantly went forward and caught Hong Wulei. Then she quickly turned back and left the battle. "It's okay." Qi Yinxia's aura reached out and transmitted her voice. Ning Chen nodded. He looked at the man in black in the pavilion and said, "Please." As the cold wind blew, the dead leaves of the camellia fluttered. Yishi stood up. Before the dead leaves could fall to the ground, they were crushed by the scattered sword will and scattered with the wind. Human life is precious. Today, Yishi will pay with your life. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword edge appeared on the stone table. In an instant, the black clothes disappeared. The sword moved with the person. It was ruthless. Ji Ming waved his hand and held the sword. The King of Hell appeared. The divine weapon appeared and clashed with the sword edge. The battle between the two swords was the most ruthless killing move. The black sword and the purple weapon clashed continuously. The murderous aura surged and drove people crazy. The swords clashed several times in an instant. Each move was faster than the previous. Under the cold night, no one showed mercy. The outcome of this battle was determined. It also determined life and death. The god of death of Fengdu moved like flowing clouds. His eyes were full of murderous intent, but he was extremely calm when he attacked. The cold and tricky sword hit a sword within the sword. Every move was deadly. On the other hand, Hong Wulei waved the King of Hell. It was simple and there were no flaws. In the battle of the top, life and death were decided by the sword. After 100 moves, Yishi turned the sword in her hand, and a killing move appeared immediately. Fengdu mark. The black clothes flickered in an instant. The sword edge shuttled back and forth. Sword light flashed past one after another. The sword was so fast that it was difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. Ning Chen focused and waved the King of Hell in his hand. He met the sword with the sword, and was as still as a mountain. With a tearing sound, his clothes were torn, and his red clothes were dyed red. He was the first to be injured. Oh! In the distance, the floating phantoms had strange looks in their eyes. What a fast sword! However, this young man who had reached the 30th level of the Tower of Sharpness should not be limited to this. Sword form remnant red. The King of Hell turned, and the remnant red sword appeared. The sword disappeared in an instant. Before the afterimage fell, blood scattered. With a tearing sound, his black clothes were torn and fresh blood dripped down. Fengdu was injured and his body was dyed red. The battle was difficult to determine the winner. The two people who were at the top of the sword were facing each other in life and death. The two swords that had been stained with blood broke through the sky and covered the 9 heavens and the moon. What a shocking two people! Emperor Qi squinted his eyes. The swords of these two people were very close to the top. Any higher, and they would be the only one on the sword. He was no stranger to Yishi. This was a killing sword that had been honed through killing. However, this young man called Ning Chen was too unbelievable. How could he have such terrifying strength at such a young age, and with such ordinary talent? Maybe there were shortcuts in terms of cultivation, but there were no shortcuts in terms of attainments in the sword. It was impossible to reach the top without going through thousands of trials. Skybreaker. As the swords collided, both of them were shocked by the aftershock and separated. At this moment, the King of Hell waved his sword, and 100 zhang long gust of wind rushed out. The space collapsed and reached 10 miles away. The terrifying sword shocked the world. Yishi's expression turned serious. He raised his vital energy and concentrated it on his sword. Suddenly, a black aura surged endlessly and sand filled the air. He had used his ultimate move. Sword form Luosheng Ghost Crossing. Luosheng opened the door, and 100 ghosts crossed the sky. A black aura surged out, and the sword will turned into a ghost shape, and collided with the Skybreaker sword. With a loud bang, endless waves surged and roared. The terrifying aftershock destroyed the entire Luofu Peak in an instant. The mountain collapsed and the ground caved in. Huge rocks flew everywhere. The two of them retreated a few steps and wiped the blood from the corner of their mouths. They suppressed their injuries, and the aura around them rose to the extreme. The sword pressure spread out, and an ultimate sword appeared. Young man, you have made me very happy. However, the gate of Fengdu is about to open. Yi Shi loosened his grip on the sword, and the black sword spun rapidly. He put his fingers together and slashed across the body of the sword. In an instant, black lightning surged, and a huge gate of Fengdu opened on the sword. The sword entered Fengdu, and the color of heaven and earth changed instantly. Sword form Fengdu soul. Chapter 435. Fengdu opened the door and endless murderous intent spread out. The heavy sword pressure spread rapidly, making people feel as if it was the end of the world. The sword was extremely powerful. Black airflow filled heaven and earth, and a world of death appeared. It was an illusion, but it was also a reality that would soon arrive. It was a sword technique that had never been seen before. It was so shocking that the experts floating around all felt extremely threatened. Their eyes narrowed as they felt extremely fearful. Everyone looked at the red-robed young man on the mountain. Everyone wanted to know who had reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship after this move. Nirvana. In the dark night, the red-robed man flew into the sky and blood-red swords appeared one after another. They were magnificent and dazzling. The next moment, the sword will reincarnated and turned into an endless stream of swords. They swept across the world of death and arrived in front of Fengdu. At the same time, thousands of black swords appeared and passed through the door of Fengdu. They collided with the blood-red stream of swords. There was a loud bang and a shocking roar. In an instant, heaven and earth went silent. The broken swords danced, and the sword will scattered. Huge rocks shook and splashed down, quickly turning into dust. A black sword light rushed out from the dust and brushed past the red-robed man's shoulder, bringing with it a brilliant waterfall of blood. The outcome has been decided. The dust covered the eyes, and the battle was difficult to determine. Emperor Qi withdrew his gaze. What a terrifying young man. Clang! When the dust settled, a man was seen kneeling on the ground. With a crisp sound, the black sword was broken. Yi Wudu, I surrender. Yi Wudu coughed up a mouthful of blood and admitted defeat. Ning Chen walked forward step by step. His cold sword light did not stop. At that moment, the void in the distance shook and a figure disappeared, instantly entering the battle. This battle ends here. You can't take his life, the shopkeeper said with a smile. Is that so? Ning Chen's eyes flashed coldly. His figure flashed, and his sword took the man's life. The shopkeeper's expression turned cold. He flipped his palm and blocked the sword with a clang. Just as he was about to counterattack, he saw a waterfall of blood spurt out from Yi Wudu's chest. His life force quickly weakened. The shopkeeper's expression changed. He did not want to fight anymore. He moved his feet and quickly retreated with Yi Wudu. Looking at the two people leaving, Ning Chen squinted his eyes. No wonder the news of this battle was leaked. It turned out that the shopkeeper was the real leader of the sect of extermination in Fulu. To be able to draw out this person, it was worth it. The night wind blew past, causing dust and sand to fly. Luofu Mountain, which was riddled with holes, spoke of the tragic battle that shocked the world. The entire mountain peak was almost completely destroyed, sword and tent crisscrossed, and there were sword scars left behind by the great battle everywhere. Even Yi Shi had been defeated, which was out of the expectations of most people. No one could believe that the person at the peak of the Nanling sword competition was not the emperor of a dynasty or the leader of a sect, but a young man of unknown origins. The first time the sword of the younger generation was unsheathed, it shocked the entire southern tomb. For such a young person to reach the peak of a region, it was truly shocking. Let's go! Ning Chen waved his hand and put away King of Hell. He glanced at Qi Yinxia, who was standing quietly in the void, and said, Yes. Qi Yinxia nodded, and immediately took Hong Wulei to the north. Ning Chen stepped forward, his silhouette vanishing as he quickly followed. Congratulations, Emperor Qi. In the sky, a half-sovereign cupped his fists and bowed to the Emperor of Sky Pivot. You're welcome. Emperor Qi returned the greeting with a smile on his face. In the central heavenly court of the imperial palace of Sky Pivot, Hong Wulei was still unconscious in the rising and falling mist. Ning Chen stood in front of him, condensing qi with his fingers. A red light rose, gathering the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, and continuously pouring it into Hong Wulei's body. It will take a few more days for her to wake up. I still have something important to do. After I'm done, I'll come back and take her away. I'll have to trouble you these days, Miss Qi, Ning Chen said, looking at the woman beside him. Don't worry, Qi Yinxia replied softly. The matter of saving the ghost girl was urgent, and Ning Chen did not want to wait any longer. After bidding farewell to the former, he immediately set off in the direction of the Yuheng Holy Land. On the mountain of the Yuheng Holy Land, Lord Yuheng, Xiao Wuming, and the Grand Elders who had been in seclusion for a long time walked out. Even the Grand Elders of the previous generation appeared, waiting for someone to return. Not long after, at the peak of the mountain, a red-clothed figure appeared. Knowing Destiny walked out with an ice coffin behind him, in which a beautiful figure was sleeping quietly. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 years had passed. He had fulfilled his promise, and now it was the Yuheng Holy Land's turn to fulfill it. Xiao Wuming looked at the young man in front of him, and lightly nodded his head in greeting. Although they were only master and disciple in name, he cherished this hard-won fate. He hoped that this child would be able to fulfill his wish, and save the person in his heart. Open the ice coffin, said Lord Yuheng. Ning Chen nodded and waved his hand to open the ice coffin. Looking at the woman in the coffin, a trace of unconcealable pain flashed through the depths of his eyes. Lord Yuheng walked forward and condensed Yuan in his palm. Immediately, the entire mountain shook violently. In the next moment, a dazzling azure cauldron slowly rose from the depths of the mountain. Endless rays of light illuminated the heavens and the earth. It was extremely extraordinary. The appearance of the cauldron caused the winds and clouds to change. Thunder and lightning intersected, and rolling dark clouds covered the sky. At that moment, an extremely powerful aura slowly awakened in the depths of the Yuheng Holy Land. Lord Yuheng and the others were shocked, and immediately revealed expressions of joy. Welcome back, Ancestor. Everyone bowed and respectfully said, no need for formalities. As he spoke, the space swirled and specks of starlight converged to form the figure of a middle-aged man. He looked at everyone and spoke calmly. Ancestor Yuheng had come out of seclusion. He was a peerless expert at the half-step exalt realm. As soon as he appeared, he gave off an extremely powerful pressure. Wherever his aura passed, even the space on the mountain violently distorted. You're Ning Chen? As expected, heroes come from the youth. Ancestor Yuheng's gaze moved over, and looked at the young man before him as he praised. You're too kind, Ning Chen replied. Ancestor Yuheng glanced at the woman sleeping within the coffin, and a wisp of surprise flashed through his eyes. Although the Yuheng cauldron has the effect of reviving, it similarly requires someone to contribute their vitality. Have you thought it through? Yes, Ning Chen nodded. Since it's like that, then let's begin. As soon as he finished speaking, Ancestor Yuheng flipped his palm, and gathered the energy of the heavens and the earth. Vast and peerless energy poured into the cauldron. Instantly, Yuheng emitted a strange light that enveloped Ghost Woman and Ning Chen within it. As the red light left his body, Ning Chen endured the pain throughout his body, and looked at the woman within the coffin. His tenacious heart had never wavered in the slightest. As long as he could awaken her, he was willing to pay any price. His vitality faded, and his black hair was dyed with frost. Shortly after, Phoenix essence left his body, and poured into Ghost Woman's body. Something's wrong. Suddenly, Ning Chen's body trembled, and his eyes revealed monstrous fury. He looked at Ancestor Yuheng in the air, and his killing intent erupted. It's you. You only noticed now? It's too late. Ancestor Yuheng sneered and pressed down with his palm. Yuheng glowed and a strange light sprinkled down. The restrained life-knowing cultivator instantly felt as if 10,000 mountains were pressing down on him, and a bloody mist gushed out from his body. Phoenix essence was stripped and strands of it left his body. Within the coffin, Ghost essence also rapidly flowed out from Ghost Woman's body, and gathered into Ancestor Yuheng's body. The sudden change shocked everyone, and they didn't understand what was going on. Xiao Wuming was the first to react. Without any hesitation, he drew the sword on his back and slashed it at the strange light that was pressing down from the Yuheng cauldron. "Traitor, back off!" Ancestor Yuheng coldly shouted and slapped out with his palm. With a bang, Xiao Wuming flew out covered in blood, and after landing on the ground, he staggered and vomited blood. Ancestor! Sect Master Yuheng also reacted. He took 2 steps forward and anxiously said, "Our Yuheng sacred ground owes this kid. You can't do this." Noisy. Impatience flashed in Ancestor Yuheng's eyes. He waved his hand, and a majestic true yuan spread out and pushed Sect Master Yuheng back. Under the strange light, Life Knowing's anger soared as he saw the ghost essence in Ghost Woman's body continuously dissipating. He sacrificed half of his blood qi and used his blood sword to attack the cauldron in the air. With a terrifying vibration, the strange light flickered violently. Ning Chun waved his hand and grabbed the ice coffin and quickly retreated from the strange light. The phoenix shadow appeared and swallowed the ice coffin. Yama's sword also fell and entered Life Knowing's hand. Ning Chun was enraged. His killing intent surged and condensed. The huge rock faced the sky and roared. The most horrifying killing intent broke through the 9 heavens. Even 100 miles away, people could feel this horrifying killing intent. "You deserve to die 10,000 times." Life Knowing held his sword and his figure disappeared. He instantly appeared in front of Ancestor Yuheng and slashed with Yama's sword. "Seriously injured? More than half of your blood qi dissipated. How much strength do you have left?" Ancestor Yuheng snorted coldly and flipped his hand to block the sword. Then his vital energy spread and sent the young person flying. Senior Sect Brother. Sensing the great change in the red bamboo of regret on the mountain, Jian Shui quickly arrived. When she saw Ancestor Yuheng, who no longer concealed his presence, her pupils contracted. It was him, the mysterious expert who had appeared to kill them when they left Yuheng that day. Hongyi landed on the ground, her body dripping with blood that dyed the ground red. She was unwilling to retreat, hating her own powerlessness and her eyes for not being able to see. In the homeland of West Buddha, in the ancient land of Chongling, Su Yi, who had been cultivating with her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes. The phoenix body's furious killing intent was sensed by her main body. Looking towards the southeast, she immediately stood and walked out of the formation. Deep in the ancient land of Chongling, Nu Chong sensed something. Her figure flickered, and she appeared in front of the formation. "Where are you going?" Nu Chong said gravely. She had not restricted this child's freedom, because she believed in his promise. In the past 10 years, he had kept his promise and never stepped out of the formation. Why did he suddenly act today? "Something has happened to the phoenix body. I must go," Ning Chun said seriously. Hearing this, Nu Chang's eyes narrowed. She did not ask more and said, "It is too slow for you to move alone. I will ask Nu Chang to send you over." "Many thanks," Ning Chun responded. After Nu Chang left, in less than 3 breaths of time, a woman surrounded by mist appeared in the air. Without saying a word, she waved her hand, and a gigantic dragon gate appeared. The next moment, she brought Ning Chun into the dragon gate. A moment later, the dragon gate disappeared. Tens of thousands of miles away, the dragon gate appeared. The two appeared and disappeared again without any pause. The fastest Nu Chang did not hesitate to use the power of the dragon gate again, and again to take knowing destiny to Nanling. Hundreds of thousands of miles away, on the mountain of the Yuheng Holy Land, Ghost Girl was in danger of dissipating. The situation of the phoenix body dying was difficult to reverse. The splattering blood dyed the ground of the mountain red. Hongyi stumbled, and her hair was dyed red. No one knew how this great calamity would end. Chapter 436. At the top of the mountain, dark clouds covered the sun. The phoenix couldn't spread its wings, and the sword dyed the water red. The heavily injured Hongyi couldn't hold on any longer. Ning Chun, who had lost most of his vitality, was suppressed, and the light on his sword became weaker and weaker. A violent dark gray aura filled the sky, Endless killing intent roared and hatred soared into the sky. All the experts in the world looked in the direction of the Alioth sacred land. Sword form. Too slow. Before the sword form was used, the palm energy arrived first. With a bang, Hong Yi's blood covered the sky and blurred Xiao Wuming's vision. The fate of a master and disciple was short but precious. Although Xiao Wuming didn't say it, he cherished it very much. At this moment, seeing Alioth betraying his master, and his disciple suffering a calamity, he endured the injuries in his body, and propped himself up. Traitor, your choice is foolish. The palm and sword clashed, but the sword couldn't move half a step forward. Alioth's palm changed direction, and the sword twisted. With a palm strike, Xiao Wuming's clothes were dyed red, and he was forced back several steps. Run! Xiao Wuming staggered to a stop and vomited blood. He glanced at the disciples not far away and shouted anxiously. He can't run, and neither can you. Alioth snorted coldly. With a flip of his palm, the Alioth sacred cauldron released a strange light, and a boundless pressure descended, sealing the entire mountain. Under the cauldron, Alioth moved again. A powerful palm energy gathered and slapped towards Hong Yi. Senior brother. When Hongzhu saw this, she took a step forward and blocked the half-venerable master's palm strike. With a bang, Alioth was sent flying. Blood spurted out and dyed Hongzhu red. Hongzhu. Xiao Wuming's mind shook. His figure flashed, and caught the heavily injured Hongzhu. He poured his true yuan into her to protect her life flame. Blood splattered all over the mountain. Knowing Destiny's eyes were bright red. His body was covered in a bloody mist, mixed with boundless killing intent. Half of his black hair turned white in an instant. The alien rock roared and charged down into the phoenix's body. In an instant, the sky was filled with lightning and mournful cries. This kid has indeed turned into a demon. 1,000 miles away, the white-robed Buddha looked at the dark clouds in the distant sky and sighed softly. Demons had different appearances, but no matter what kind of demon they were, they couldn't escape their bloodthirsty nature. If they weren't killed, they would bring disaster to the world. The demonic phoenix's red brilliance quickly turned black. It was cold and eerie. Only its eyes were still as red as blood, exuding a boundless aura of slaughter. Demonic form, bloody path. The body rebirth martial art was a completely different power. A black light streaked across the sky. The sword that was as heavy as 10,000 kilograms slashed down with a loud bang, carrying the killing karma of millions of lives. Ancestor Yu Heng's expression squinted as he flipped his palm to receive the sword, but he felt a terrifying and enormous force press down on him, causing the blood and qi in his body to roil intensely, and he retreated half a step. You slowed down. Progenitor Alioth flipped his palm, and blasted the young man before him flying with a bang. With the karma of slaughter on his body, he'd fallen into a state of bedevilment, and even though the strength of his sword was terrifying, its speed was greatly inferior to before. Demonic technique Heaven's Tears. The demonic phoenix didn't seem to feel pain. After landing on the ground, the sword moved like rain, and demonic currents gathered, causing the heavens to weep in sorrow. At the instant of receiving the attack, Progenitor Alioth retreated half a step again. He held the sword in his hand, and with a bang, the demonic phoenix's blood gushed out like a tide. Demonic form bloody flame. The blood burned and turned into demonic flames. With a slash of the sword, the bloody flame roared out. It's useless to continue struggling. Progenitor Alioth's palm condensed and blocked the bloody demonic flames. He knew that even if the person in front of him had turned into a demon, and his strength had increased greatly for a short period of time, it couldn't change the fact that he didn't have enough blood and qi. Is that so? At this moment, the void in the sky rolled, and the dragon gate appeared. A white figure walked out, looking at the situation below. Killing intent flashed across her eyes. Buddha is merciful. At the same time, the white-robed Buddha appeared outside the mountain. He had a dignified appearance, and came personally to suppress the demonic calamity. Buddha, the road ahead is blocked. As she spoke, the female supremacy materialized and stood in front of him. The appearance of the two lords meant that the knowing destiny state had arrived. The most extreme situation was confronting each other inside and outside the mountain. The oppressive aura caused the entire space to freeze. Knowing destiny state, knowing destiny state. The white-robed Marquis, who had disappeared for 10 years, reappeared in the world. He took a step forward and pressed down on the demonic phoenix body. He calmly said, "Leave it to me." The demonic phoenix's eyes became clear for a short moment. In the next moment, the two bodies merged. For the first time after 10 years, the two bodies merged completely. Immediately, a powerful airflow surged on the mountain. Wind and snow fell from the sky, creating a silvery white scene. Yama disappeared, and the knowing destiny sword appeared. A waterfall of blood mist surged. On the sword body, blood runes spread out from the sword hilt and pierced into the arm of the knowing destiny state. The sword was connected by blood, and the powerful sword pressure spread out endlessly, making everyone present feel the heaviest pressure. "Master, take Hongzhu and leave this place." Ningchen looked at Xiao Wuming and said. Hearing the word master, Xiao Wuming's body trembled. His eyes flashed with disbelief, thinking that he had misheard. The battle began. Sword light and palm energy clashed fiercely. The knowing destiny state cultivator, who had gathered all of his power, was covered in wind and snow. He was able to fight a half-sovereign head-on, without being at a disadvantage. "Wuming, back off. Your disciple can deal with it himself." A previous generation Grand Elder walked over. Looking at the ancestor in front of him, killing intent appeared in his eyes for the first time. It had been more than 10 years. He and the other 3 Grand Elders had pretended that they didn't know anything in order to raise Shui. However, they had never forgotten the old sect master's revenge. They didn't dare to forget it. "Qilian, let's work together to seal the Yuheng Divine Cauldron and help this child." Another previous generation Grand Elder walked over. Yes, Grand Elder Qilian nodded. The existence of the Divine Cauldron was indeed a big threat. Not far away, the battle was intense. 4 Grand Elders walked up and condensed their true essence. Their hands flipped a strange seal, and together, they sealed the Yuheng Divine Cauldron. Rays of strange light fell on the cauldron and sealed the Yuheng Divine Cauldron. In a flash, the Divine Cauldron's brilliance faded. The Yuheng Divine Cauldron sensed it and was about to counterattack. However, the sword edge was closing in on him, and he couldn't be distracted. The palm and sword clashed, and the aftermath spread everywhere. Ningchen activated the life scroll and reappeared the Taoist love spell in quick snow. Love spell in quick snow, drifting snow in July. The sword swung the snow, and red could be seen in the snow. The Yuheng Divine Cauldron's arm was slashed by the sword, snow and blood dripped down. It was the first time he was injured since the battle started. The Yuheng Divine Cauldron retreated a few steps. His right hand touched the wound and sealed it. Looking at the young man in front of him, who seemed to have been reborn, his eyes turned cold. "Junior, your struggle is useless. Next, I'll show you what true power is." As soon as he finished speaking, the Yuheng Divine Cauldron opened the heaven and earth with his palm. Converging the currents from all directions, he created smoke in all directions. In an instant, 100 miles of wild waves surged with the power to destroy the heaven and earth. It made people feel the fear of doomsday. However, the knowing destiny state, who had experienced the real doomsday, would not be afraid of the danger of doomsday. Blood chi spread on the sword edge in his hand. The wind and snow rolled and illuminated the 9 heavens. 3,000 miles of sword snow. The sword reflected the snow, snow white and flawless. With life as the foundation, the Taoist martial arts bloomed with the most dazzling light. As the sword slashed down, 3,000 miles of wind and snow split open the sky. The Yuheng Divine Cauldron attacked at the same time. Smoke surged out from all directions. The two attacks collided. Instantly, the mountain seemed to have been hit by a divine tribulation. Huge rocks flew, and the ground cracked. Huge gullies appeared that spanned tens of thousands of miles. In the aftermath, the Yuheng Divine Cauldron retreated 3 steps. The corner of his mouth was dyed red. He was injured again. On the other side, Ningchen retreated 2 steps and stabilized his body. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The tip of his sword turned. A blue brilliance rushed into the 9 heavens. The heaven scroll appeared again. Heaven pardoning innocent. The heaven pardoning sword was as heavy as 10,000 mountains. It crashed down. The ground within 10 miles collapsed. Huge rocks fell and smashed out huge craters. In the rain of rocks, the Yuheng divine cauldron caught the sword edge. His legs sank 3 inches into the ground. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He turned his palm and condensed energy. 9 star cloud refining. Lightning roared as an extreme attack attacked. Ning Chen used the earth scroll again. In an instant, the ground surged, and a wall made of sand blocked in front of him. It blocked the move of the cloud refining. With a loud bang, the wall collapsed. Ning Chen took a step back and drew back his sword. He waved his sword and performed another sword style. Sky shattering. A sword shattering the sky. Everywhere the violent mist passed, the space within 300 meters suddenly split open. The aftermath of the cloud refining instantly turned invisible. Heavenfall. After sky shattering, the heavenfall was used again. A sword appeared from the 9 heavens and fell straight down. The ground that was riddled with holes was destroyed again. Violent sand filled the air. In the waves of sand, the Yuheng divine cauldron retreated again and again. He had just blocked the heavenfall sword when he saw a sword rain surge from the ground and instantly destroy a 300-meter-tall mountain. A muffled groan. The sword light penetrated his body. A waterfall of blood splashed out and dyed the sand red. In the battle where he was restrained in every way and was heavily injured by the younger generation, the rage in the Yuheng divine cauldron was difficult to suppress. His hands refined yin and yang. The aura of destruction covered the heavens and the earth. The convergence of extreme energy appeared for the first time. Convergence of yin and yang, destruction of the heavens. The convergence of flows was destructive. It carried the might of destroying the heavens and instantly destroyed everything in its path. The terrifying pressure caused the expressions of everyone on the mountain to change. But at this moment, the 3 scrolls around Knowing Ming opened at the same time. The heavens and the earth were born, and the chaos appeared. The 3 scrolls attacked together and reappeared in the world. Heaven ascends, earth falls, no life. Completely different powers converged into one move. The wind and snow opened up a path, and the tip of the sword paved the way. The space within 300 meters collapsed in response. The 2 moves collided with a loud bang. The ground within 300 meters collapsed inch by inch. The aftermath roared violently. Bai Yi retreated while being stained with blood. The corner of her mouth overflowed with red. In the wind and snow, a sword pierced through the body of the Yuheng divine cauldron. Blood gushed out from the Yuheng divine cauldron as he knelt on the ground with a bang. Uff! The blood he spat out dyed the ground before him red. The Yuheng divine cauldron tried to get up several times, but was unable to. The blood that flowed from his body rushed out numerous ravines on the ground. It was extremely dazzling. A cold wind blew past the mountain that was completely destroyed. The shocking scene shocked everyone. The death of a half-venerable was right before their eyes. I actually. The Yuheng divine cauldron tried to get up but was still unable to. With a bang, he knelt on the ground and vomited blood again. No matter if he was unwilling or angry, even if he was as strong as a half-venerable, at this moment, he couldn't even get up. The cold light on the sword flashed. Blood dripped down. The battle was over. The victor had been decided. The Yuheng divine cauldron laughed towards the sky. The madness in his laughter pierced people's hearts. Fresh blood gushed out from his chest, filling the sky with a mist clouding his eyes. His machinations and calculations were exhausted, and his knowing destiny technique suppressed Yuheng King. Chapter 437. At the peak of the mountain in the Alias sacred ground, the demigod had been defeated. The battle had come to an end, and the scene of devastation made people feel a deep sense of desolation. Below the Aliath ancestor was a pool of blood. He struggled to get up, but once again knelt down powerlessly. The ground was covered in blood, reflecting the Aliath ancestor's unwillingness. He gathered the last of his true essence in his hands and slammed them on the ground. Instantly, his body soared up, and his blood chi surged out. A huge dragon gate appeared. Unwilling to lose like this, the Aliath ancestor sacrificed his lifespan and destroyed his hopes of becoming a supremacy. He summoned the dragon gate and bet his last move. In an instant, The wind and clouds within 100 miles changed. Thunder and lightning surged and the mist roared. The dragon's gate's shadow collapsed and melted into the heaven and earth. The apocalyptic divine might shook the 9 heavens, causing all living beings within 100 miles to tremble. At the foot of the mountain, the female supremacy looked at the mountain, and a strange light flashed through her eyes. Is he going to go all out? After destroying the foundation of the forbidden technique, he can still force a demigod to such a state. This child's ability is truly unfathomable. Unfortunately, cultivating the forbidden technique of the life scroll was too difficult. It would be difficult for the blasphemous technique used in the battle with the Nether King to appear again. Buddha, why have you come? The female supremacy looked at the mountain and asked indifferently. Sin. The subhoodie said calmly. What sin? The female supremacy asked again. Sin of taking lives, the subhoodie replied. The female supremacy looked back at the benevolent Buddha and said seriously, in this world, no one has the right to condemn him for taking lives. Knowing destiny was a sin, and taking lives was also a sin. Those seeking revenge could seek revenge, but no one had the right to condemn him. Back then, if knowing destiny had been soft-hearted and hadn't sacrificed millions of lives, then the 5 regions would have been completely destroyed by the divine tribulation. The sin of killing millions was borne by one's body. Only he knew the bitterness of the lotus heart. While the 2 supremacies were facing each other, the wind and clouds howled as the demigod fought with his life. His strongest move transcended the limit, and a terrifying power rushed into the sky, shocking the 9 heavens. At the front, Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. He clenched his left hand, and the demon blade appeared. The 4 scrolls of reincarnation reappeared, and the peak of the heavenly book's martial arts appeared. 4 scrolls, lifeless heaven and earth. The saber and sword left his hand, and circled around his body. Wind and thunder surged, water and fire surged. Boundless energy endlessly grew and died. With the support of the phoenix origin, the move of reincarnation shook the heavens and earth. The most powerful move condensed the power of the 4 scrolls, and the power of the phoenix origin. It reappeared in the mortal world. The surging heavenly might surged and spun rapidly in the void. The next moment, the saber and the sword carried the power to open the sky. They turned into the most dazzling flowing light and rushed out. The 2 attacks collided, causing a loud explosion that resounded through the universe. Endless destructive power surged out, and the mountains on the mountain completely collapsed. Bang! Progenitor Yu Hung knelt on the ground once more, and his knees were completely shattered and blood dyed his entire body red. Let's go to hell together. With a maniacal laugh, the aura around half-venerable's body surged wildly. He was about to self-destruct and perish together with the entire Alioth. However, right at this moment a variable suddenly appeared. A figure in a black and white cloak suddenly appeared on the battlefield. The snowy sword slashed out without any warning, and half of the expert's soul was severed. With a muffled groan, blood spurted out from his throat, and sprinkled all over the sky and dyed the ground red. Progenitor Yu Hung turned his head with difficulty, and before he could see the person's face clearly, with a crack, his head flew up and his soul dissipated. Friend, long time no see. Bewitching eyes, a black and white cloak, a figure that could not be more familiar. The person who came was the young master of the compassionate sword heavenly pavilion, Mu Qianshang. Seeing the person who suddenly appeared, Ning Chun was startled. After a moment, he regained his senses, and a rare smile appeared on his calm face. He said, long time no see. A friend that he had entrusted his life and death to in the past. Meeting again today, he was not too excited. With a greeting, they parted and reunited. Brother Mu, please wait a moment. After exchanging greetings, Ning Chen instructed and waved his hand to keep the knowing destiny sword. He then walked in front of Xiao Wuming and Hong Zhu, and condensed his yuan qi into the 2 who were heavily injured. Shui, come here. After stabilizing the 2's injuries, Ning Chen glanced at Jian Shui, who was not far away, and said, looking at the familiar yet strange figure in front of her, Jian Shui hesitated for a moment, but still obediently walked over. Help Master and Hong Zhu back to rest. If there's anything, come find me again. Ning Chen said seriously. Jian Shui'er nodded and carefully helped the two of them out of the place. After Shui'er left, the four predecessors came over. Without saying anything, they respectfully bowed and said, "Many thanks." Ningchen looked at Shui'er, who had left into the distance. He immediately turned around and spoke with a serious expression. "Shui'er is intelligent. It is impossible to hide this matter forever. Elders, it is best that you choose a suitable time to tell Shui'er about what happened back then." After this battle, the truth of the past was already on the verge of being revealed. It was impossible for Jian Shui'er not to see it. Rather than letting this girl keep it in her heart and let her imagination run wild, it was better to tell the truth. Only after experiencing pain could the shackles in her heart be unlocked, and she could be reborn. Not far away, Mu Qianshang looked at the friend who had once entrusted him with life and death. An imperceptible smile appeared on his bewitchingly handsome face. This seemingly emotionless person was often the one who cherished relationships the most. After knowing him for over a decade, he had changed a lot, but he seemed to have not changed at all. After handing over the matter, Ningchen looked at Mu Qianshang and said, "Brother Mu, let's go down the mountain together." Heh. Mu Qianshang smiled faintly. Your habit of trapping your friends still can't be changed. He knew better than anyone what was at the bottom of the mountain. That terrifying pressure that made people unable to breathe was something that only human sovereigns would be able to do. One is a friend, and the other is not an enemy. When did Brother Mu's courage become so small? Ningchen chuckled. It's not that I'm timid, it's just that I've been tricked by you too many times. Mu Qianshang replied. Although his words were somewhat sarcastic, he still followed them down the mountain. At the bottom of the mountain, the two sovereigns were facing each other. Powerful auras were constantly clashing. The Buddha was in front while the female sovereign was blocking the way, not allowing them to take half a step forward. At that time, the two strongest sovereigns were both insistent. Neither of them was willing to take half a step back. Knowing destiny slowly walked down the mountain, the female sovereign glanced over and indifferently asked, "Is everything settled?" "Yes." Ningchen nodded. Looking at the Buddha in front of him, he said, "Buddha, you can't kill me right now, so your insistence is useless. Furthermore, compared to taking my life, I think there is something else you would be more interested in." Venerable Subhuti frowned, waiting for him to continue. Ningchen looked to the east and calmly said, "Eastern Region's Divine Prefecture, Eternal Night Ruins, 33 miles north of the Divine Sect, the broken sword of Sualuo Subhuti's Tao." Hearing the former's words, Venerable Subhuti's body trembled. An almost imperceptible sadness flashed through his merciful Buddha eyes. After the Buddha left, Ningchen sighed. With a wave of his hand, the image of a phoenix appeared behind him. An ice coffin flew out and gently landed on the ground. Looking at the sleeping figure in the coffin, Su Yi's eyes gradually dimmed. Wind and snow gathered in her hands to reforge the coffin. Female sovereign, is there really no way to bring the dead back to life in this world? Ningchen softly asked. There shouldn't be, said the female sovereign indifferently. Back then, the only reason she had saved him was because he still had a single breath left, and his vitality hadn't completely dissipated. But this woman was different. She had already lost her vitality, and there was no way to bring her back. However, nothing was absolute. Perhaps there was, but she just didn't know. Let me remind you that the ghost origin in this woman's body was originally incomplete. After going through this tribulation, it was even more seriously damaged. If you don't think of a way to repair it, it might not be long before it scatters, said the female sovereign. Chapter 438. The noble woman's warning rang in his ears and touched the deepest pain in Ji Ming's heart. His eyes looked at the sleeping figure in the coffin, and an imperceptible pain flashed through. The phoenix phantom cried, and rays of light entered the woman in the coffin to protect her spirit body. The noble woman did not stop him, and waited silently. She knew that this woman was a hurdle that the young man could not overcome. But was there a way to bring the dead back to life? She did not know. A long time later, Ningchen stopped. Exhaustion rose in his eyes, and his presence was clearly much weaker. The phoenix is similar to the vermilion bird. Its origin is fire, and not suitable for saving people. The phoenix source you put into her body cannot last for long. After speaking, the noble woman looked to the south and said slowly, "At the bottom of the South Sea, there is a sea region temple. It is said to be the tomb of the azure dragon of the four symbols. The azure dragon is wood, and its origin dragon pearl may be able to stop this woman's ghost body." The four symbols were the azure dragon elephant of the east, the black tortoise elephant of the north, the white tiger elephant of the west, and the vermilion bird elephant of the south. However, in the divine tribulation 30,000 years ago, the order of the world was in chaos. The four symbols shifted positions, and most of their power dissipated. However, even if they did not have much of their origin left, the divine spirits that had once guarded the four directions were not something a human could reach. Hearing the words Sea Region Temple for the second time, Ning Chen's eyes flashed. He had heard Nan Mingtian mention this place before. There seemed to be guardians there, and it was not easy to enter. "Noble woman, please wait here for 2 days. I will get the dragon pearl," and immediately returned to Chongling with noble woman. Ning Chen came back to his senses and requested. "Only 2 days," the noble woman said coolly. Ning Chen nodded. If he could not get it in 2 days, then it was useless no matter how much time he had. "Brother Mu, do you have any plans?" Ning Chen looked at the man beside him and asked. "I have plans, and we are going on different paths." Mu Qianshang answered without even thinking. "We have not seen each other for a long time. It is a pity to part like this. Since Brother Mu has time to come to Yuheng, I presume the matter is not too urgent. How about we go to the Sea Region Temple together to broaden our horizons?" Ning Chen said with a sincere expression. Mu Qianshang was about to speak when Ning Chen pulled him away. "Let's go, there is not much time." As soon as she finished speaking, Suyi led her friends towards the South Sea. To the south of the southern tomb, there was a boundless sea region. The sky and earth were boundless, and the sea was blue in color. Huge waves surged, reaching tens of feet high. The magnificent scene was shocking. At this moment, the void shook and 2 figures appeared in the air above the sea. One was dressed in white while the other was dressed in black. Both of their extraordinary auras were eye-catching. "Knowledge Marquis, I'm not very familiar with you." Mu Qianshang looked down at the turbulent sea below and lightly said, "Brother Mu, we're going down. Get ready." Ning Chen pretended that he did not hear anything. He grabbed the old man and fell into the huge wave together. His sword will opened up a path as he descended rapidly. When he was 10,000 feet below the ground, an endless pressure pressed down on him from all directions. It was as if 100 mountains were pressing down on him, making it difficult for him to breathe. Ning Chen spread out his spiritual sense to search for traces of the Sea God Palace. The existence of the Sea God Palace was not an absolute secret. It should not be too difficult to find it. Found it. After descending another 1,000 feet, an exceptionally beautiful palace appeared in his spiritual sense. Ning Chen waved his sword, opening up a path on the seabed. Then he brought Mu Qianshang along with him. After several breaths of time, the two of them stopped. Looking at the huge palace in front of them, a strange light flashed in their eyes. What a shocking palace! To be able to build such an immortal palace in the depths of the sea. Perhaps only a god could do such a thing. Mu Qianshang glanced at the person beside him, not knowing what to say. It seemed he had once more been forced to do manual labor. But since they had already arrived, he could only try his best. "Do you want to go first or should I?" Ning Chen looked ahead, his expression solemn. "Hey, let's go together. No one will lose out." Mu Qianshang's lips curled. The two of them entered the palace together. The path ahead was calm, and they didn't encounter any obstructions. The palace was completely empty. It was abnormally quiet, as if no one had come here in thousands of years. This unusual situation made the two of them even more vigilant. If someone said the Sea God Palace that had existed for countless years didn't have any dangers, even a fool wouldn't believe it. Mu Qianshang took a step forward. With a wave of his hand, an inky white sword chi slashed through the air, crashing into the palace's wall. In the next moment, space rippled, and the sword chi silently dissipated. "Brother Mu, you've regressed." Ning Chen carefully observed his surroundings, not forgetting to ridicule him. If you're so good, then go ahead. Mu Qianshang indifferently said. Fine, I'll go. Ning Chen stepped forward and formed a sword with his fingers. But he felt the spiritual energy in the air was no longer under his control. Before his sword could even be used, it had already weakened by 30%. How is it? Mu Qianshang's tone was filled with ridicule. It really is strange. Ning Chen withdrew his hand. Boom! Just as the two of them finished speaking, the palace shook. Sword chi surged out from all directions, ink-white brilliance and astonishing power. The two of them's expressions changed. Taking strange steps, their figures flickered, dodging the incoming sword chi. With a piercing sound, a cold wind blew past their clothes. Their plain clothes and cloaks were simultaneously slashed by the sword chi. The two of them stopped in their tracks, cold sweat dripping down their backs. Fortunately, they hadn't attacked just now. Otherwise, their sword chi would have been reflected back at them, and that would have been truly stimulating. I had once thought of my own fate, but I never thought I would die under Brother Mu's sword. Ning Chen looked at the palace's stone wall in front of him. If you die, you'll be able to save a lot of people. Mu Qianshang was on high alert as he casually replied. Suddenly, with a rumbling sound, a stone wall rose up from the palace, and a path appeared in front of them. It was a long and serene path with no end in sight, making people feel an indescribable pressure. It looks like the real test is below. Let's go. I'll help you obtain the dragon bead, and then we'll part ways. I hope we won't meet again in the next 8 to 10 years. Mu Qianshang stepped forward. Brother Mu's words are really hurtful. Ning Chen also walked forward and responded. The serene path had 9 bends and 18 turns, winding corridors with no end in sight. After walking for an unknown amount of time, corpses suddenly appeared on the ground, increasing in number. A boundless sea of blood appeared in front of them. White bones of all shapes and sizes floated on top of it. Squeaking sounds could be heard as fist-sized ants rolled out from the sea of blood. A terrifying scene that made people's scalps tingle. Roar! A heaven-shaking roar rang out, and the sea of blood churned. Bubbles rose up one after another before bursting. The ants scattered, and were quickly submerged by the waves of the sea of blood. The two of them walked through the sea of blood, but they could see that in the 9 winding corridors, there was a faint trace of azure chi. It was very faint, and if one didn't carefully sense it, they would have missed it. The sea of blood below them was still boiling. A bloody hand slowly reached out and slapped the floating bones into it. The sea of blood was boundless, and there was a deathly stillness everywhere. Is this an illusion? Ning Chen stopped and looked at the sea of blood below him with a grave expression. It doesn't look like it. Mu Qianshang looked around and replied. Illusions would always give people a false feeling. Even if they were lost in them, they wouldn't feel it was real. But the scene in front of them was different. It was as if something was really happening in front of them. The Azure Dragon is the master of life. For this place to be a land of death, it really is inconceivable. Ning Chen slowly said. Be careful the rest of the way. There might be trouble. Mu Qianshang warned. Yes. Ning Chen nodded and continued walking along the winding path. Roar! At this moment, another heaven-shaking beast roar rang out. A huge tiger roared, and behind the tiger was an azure dragon. Borrowing its strength, both the dragon and tiger attacked the two of them. Mu Qianshang's expression froze, and he unsheathed his snow sword. His snow mountain inky white appeared on his sword, and he slashed out, slaying the dragon and tiger. With a boom, heaven and earth tilted. Terrifying shockwaves surged out endlessly, rolling up the sea of blood. Be careful, its sword intent. Mu Qianshang focused. Ning Chen's eyes flashed. It should be one of the Divine Palace's guardians. But they hadn't sensed it at all. That meant this person was still very far away. With just a single sword attack, his cultivation base was not inferior to any of them. If we encounter one of the guardians, Brother Mu shouldn't care about the dignity of martial artists. Let's all attack together. Ning Chen didn't feel embarrassed at all. It depends on the situation. If we can win, then we'll fight alone. If we can't win, then we'll fight together. Mu Qianshang also didn't feel that joining hands was shameful. Perhaps the compassionate sword Heavenly Pavilion's young master had once been a gentleman. But that was already in the past. The war disaster king had surrounded and attacked the master of the four extreme realms. The Nether King had joined hands with 3 people, 5 people, and even over 10 people working together. This time wasn't much. The ancient etiquette of martial artists had long since been tricked by a certain person and a certain person's friend. It was so lost that it couldn't be found. Wanting to pick it up again would be difficult. Since they've already greeted us, we can't not return the greeting. Move aside first, I'll greet them, said Mu Qianshang indifferently. Ah. Ningchen took 2 steps away. He knew that the sword attack just now had aroused his friend's fighting spirit. Mu Qianshang took half a step forward. Inky white light soared around him. Mountains and rivers appeared. His sword was like snow, and his surging sword intent disappeared into the mountains and rivers. In the nameless sea region, a blue-robed young swordsman was resting with his eyes closed. Just at this moment, an inky white sword chi appeared. An extraordinary sword intent swept through the surrounding seawater, causing huge waves to rise. The swordsman's sword appeared, and a blue sword blocked in front of him. With a loud bang, sword intent surged through the water, causing huge waves. Extraordinary swordsman, I've been waiting for you. The water god had opened its eyes, and Tian Wu had appeared. An unfathomable aura had suppressed the entire sea region. The water god Tian Wu had appeared for the first time. On the winding corridor, the inky white dissipated, and the snow sword returned to its sheath. Mu Qianshang looked at Ning Chun and indifferently said, "What about you? Do you want to greet the master of this place?" "No need. Since Brother Mu has already taken action, I won't embarrass myself." Ning Chun smiled. "Then let's continue on our way." Mu Qianshang didn't say anything else, and continued walking forward. Ning Chun glanced at the sea of blood beneath him. After thinking for a moment, he followed. If this place wasn't an illusion, then where had this sea of blood come from? Chapter 439. Within the 9 winding corridors, the sea of blood was surging. The dense land of death was boundless. The 2 walked for a long time, but still could not reach the end. Mu Qianshang's eyes flashed with coldness. Ink condensed on his finger. Black mountains and white water moved horizontally. A transcendent sword realm appeared above the 9 winding corridors. "Brother Mu, you can't be thinking of destroying this place, right?" Seeing this, Ning Chen's expression changed. He immediately dodged, unwilling to be implicated. "Since we can't get out of here, I'll just destroy it." Mu Qianshang's sword intent surged. The tip of his finger turned into a sword. The mountains and rivers moved. 10,000 sword intents scattered endlessly. An unstoppable momentum rapidly spread between heaven and earth. The mountains and rivers dissipated, turning into sword intents, descending into the world. The rumbling shook, resounding through the 9 winding corridors. The terrifying sword aura swept through the heaven and earth. In an instant, the sea of blood collapsed, the sea of blood rolled. The waves surged 100 zhang. The 9 winding corridors were destroyed. The road ahead disappeared. The 2 stood above the sea of blood. Huge rocks constantly fell around them, smashing into the sea, splashing huge waves. "How do we go now?" Ning Chen looked at the almost identical scene and helplessly asked. "I don't know," Mu Qianshang indifferently said. There was no road ahead. Suddenly, the rolling sea of blood changed again. One after another blood-red hands appeared, slapping towards the 2. Ning Chen's expression did not change. He raised his hand and pointed at the incoming blood-red hands. Immediately, sword intent spread everywhere. The blood-red hands shattered. On the side, Mu Qianshang also raised his hand. Sword chi circulated, shattering the blood-red hands in front. The 2 prides walked together. The road ahead was unstoppable. One after another, the large hands, under the sword intent, quickly turned invisible, turning into blood rain, falling back into the sea of blood. Sword style sky-splitting. Knowing destiny condensed a sword split the sky, the dusky void ahead. The sword light swept past, cutting off all the obstacles, clearing all the confusion. The 2 turned into flowing lights, moving along with the sword. After a moment, the surrounding changed again. A green aura filled the air like starlight. a powerful pressure came from all directions. This was a strange scene. When they looked back, the two were already in a nebula. The universe was mysterious, and millions of stars flickered. It was a shocking sight. The absolute beginning martial exhibition, the four symbols manifested. The azure dragon elephant from the east, the black tortoise elephant from the north, the white tiger elephant from the west, and the vermilion bird elephant from the south appeared in the starry sky. Right at this moment, black feathers that covered the sky drifted down as the heavens and the earth trembled. A black figure slowly descended, his black hair fluttering, his divine appearance cold and handsome, and his eyes that looked disdainfully at the 9 heavens were dazzling like the starry sky, without a trace of color, pure and cold, and it caused all living beings to feel terror that penetrated deep into their bones. The 7 extinction heavens of the Netherworld King appeared. With a divine sword in his hand, he killed the 4 symbols' divine spirits. A great battle broke out. The 4 symbols joined forces and fought against the god of creation. However, the divine might was irreversible. After a brief confrontation, the Nether King's figure disappeared. He instantly crossed the boundless void and slashed down with his sword. The white tiger and the black tortoise were instantly beheaded. Blood splattered across the starry sky. With the matrix of 4 symbols broken, the vermilion bird's eyes flashed with determination. It screeched at the azure dragon, and its divine fire surged as it charged at the lord of the 7 ultimate celestial realm. The azure dragon roared in grief, but he understood the vermilion bird's will. He turned into a ray of green light and quickly flew away. The Nether King's eyes flashed coldly. He slashed with his divine sword, and the vermilion bird was split into 2. Blood splattered all over the sky and burned away in the flames. The azure dragon left with its heavily injured body and disappeared into the bottom of the South Sea. In the next moment, it retracted its aura and fell into an eternal slumber. The vision dissipated. Ning Chun and Mu Qianshang looked at each other, and shock flashed in their eyes. This scene should be the memory of the azure dragon, when the Nether King first descended. It turned out that other than the azure dragon, the other 3 divine spirits had all fallen. When the Nether King descended on the divine prefecture, he did not use all of his power, but it was already enough to make the entire divine prefecture feel like it was the end of the world. There were many casualties. Today, when they saw the Nether King's divine might, it was even more shocking. Could it be that the azure dragon is still alive? Mu Qianshang looked at the surrounding green aura that permeated the heaven and earth and asked. The possibility is very small. With its injuries, it has been sleeping for 30,000 years. I'm afraid it will be difficult for it to wake up again. Ning Chen's expression was solemn. 30,000 years was too long. If its body was assimilated by the heaven and earth, even the 4 symbols' divine spirits would not be able to wake up again. Let's continue on our way. We don't have much time. Ning Chen retracted his thoughts and stepped forward. Mu Qianshang looked back, and a faint brilliance flashed in his demonic eyes. He stepped forward and followed. If he did not guess wrongly, this sea domain temple should not be as simple as a temple. Ning Chen, who was in front, had the same doubt in his eyes. Based on the scene before him, they seemed to be inside the azure dragon's body. The 2 of them continued to move forward. The scenery around them constantly changed. It might be mountains, valleys, or wilderness. After walking for an unknown period of time, the heaven and earth around them suddenly turned solemn. A majestic temple appeared before them once again. Where is this? Mu Qianshang frowned. It was not over yet. With the distance they had walked, they could basically walk out of half of the southern tomb. But they still did not see any trace of the dragon pearl. Nor did they meet the swordsman who attacked. Let's go in and take a look, Ning Chen said. His figure flashed and entered the temple. Mu Qianshang followed behind. The moment he entered the temple, his eyes narrowed. Had they arrived? The scene in front of him was a cyan origin pearl floating in the temple. It was exuberant with vitality, spreading out from the dragon pearl. Wherever it passed, a cyan lotus bloomed and fell. It was a cycle of reincarnation. There was not a single person in the spacious temple. There was only a single dragon pearl here. The unusual situation made the two of them even more cautious. Brother Mu, do you want to feel what the dragon pearl is at a close distance? I'll give this opportunity to you. Ningchen looked at the cyan dragon pearl in front of him and said, I don't want it. If you don't want it, we'll go back. Mu Qiansheng refused without hesitation. If the situation in front of him was not unusual, then even a fool would not believe it. With the dragon pearl in front of them, they had no choice but to take it. Ningchen took a step forward, and sword intent spread out from his finger. With a sword strike, several sword lights flew towards the dragon pearl. But at this moment, a cyan lotus swayed in the air. Rays of light scattered down and collided with the sword lights. The shock waves spread out, and the dense mist scattered. The two narrowed their eyes. This dragon pearl did not seem to be easy to obtain. In the next instant, Su Yi's figure flickered. She avoided the cyan lotus and shot towards the dragon pearl. She took a step forward and extended her hand, wanting to take it. Heaven and earth changed once more. The cyan lotus condensed into a human form. A sword light slashed towards Su Yi. Mu Qiansheng moved at the same time. He used his finger to catch the sword. His true essence shook, and the cyan lotus sword images instantly disappeared. One lotus retreated and another appeared. Life-seizing sword light appeared in front of Su Yi. Ningchen's eyes narrowed. He leaned to the side to avoid the sword light. His finger condensed on the tip of his sword. The scattered lotus bodies returned to the dragon pearl. An instant later, several more lotuses bloomed and sword images appeared. Sharp and fierce swordlight pressed down on Su Yi. You take the dragon pearl. Leave the rest to me. Mu Qiansheng's eyes turned cold. The snow sword on his back was unsheathed. Inky white swordlight flowed, cutting through the mountains and rivers. Several lotus sword images disappeared. Be careful, warned Ningchen. Don't worry, they won't be able to injure me, said Mu Qiansheng. Brother Mu misunderstands. What I'm saying is that you have to be careful. Don't be careless. I don't want to be stabbed in the heart while taking the dragon pearl. Ningchen's figure moved once more, directly shooting towards the dragon pearl floating in the air. Mu Qiansheng sneered and moved at the same time. The snow sword's light flickered several times, blocking the sword light coming from all directions. With tacit cooperation and complete trust, Ningchen was no longer distracted by what was happening behind him. He gathered his qi and grabbed the dragon pearl in front of him. The moment he touched it, Ji Ming's expression changed. Without another word, he immediately pulled back. However, he was still half a step too late. With a heaven-shaking explosion, heaven and earth shook. An extremely dazzling brilliance erupted, and the hall disappeared. The image of the moon in the water shattered. Cough cough, two figures were sent flying. After miserably landing on the ground, they violently coughed. As expected, nothing good ever happens when I'm with you. Mu Qiansheng waved his hand to disperse the dust around him. Looking at the scene around him, his mood was extremely bad. It was just an accident. Ningchen steadied himself and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Fortunately, his body's foundation was pretty good, and his blood was thick enough to withstand a beating. Otherwise, it really would have been too exciting. The two of you have finally arrived. A blue-clothed swordsman appeared in the middle of the sea. His young face didn't show any signs of aging. However, his powerful aura was unfathomable, far surpassing any half-step sovereign. It can't be a sovereign, right? Mu Qiansheng's eyes flashed. It doesn't look like it. However, he's definitely harder to fight than ancestor Yu Heng. Ningchen's expression also became serious. This person's cultivation was unclear. It wasn't like an ordinary cultivator who had a clear cultivation realm. It was more like a swordsman who had fused with the Grand Tao. It was similar to the feeling Mu Bai gave him back then. Opponents are hard to come by. Why don't you go first? Asked Ningchen. No need. It's better for you to go against such an expert. Mu Qiansheng looked at the blue-clothed expert. He didn't have any intention of taking the lead. The two of you don't need to argue. Come at me together. The swordsman waved his hand, and a blue divine sword slowly descended from the sea. The instant it was unsheathed, a powerful sword pressure surged out. Its shocking power, made the two people in front of him unconsciously narrow their eyes and become vigilant. The swordsman spoke. His words seemed calm, but they were filled with the confidence of an expert. Facing two opponents alone, was this confidence or conceit? Before the battle even began, boundless sword intent surged out. The auras of the three people facing each other soared to the extreme, splitting the sky and breaking the sea. Please. Mu Qianshang's expression changed. A devilish inky white light flashed, and his sword domain spread out. Black mountains and white water appeared under the sea. In the face of an unprecedented challenge, Tian Wu's expression became serious. He waved his hand, and sword intent soared into the 9 heavens. Above the sea, the moon shone brightly. At this moment, 3 sword intents soared into the 9 heavens. Inky white, plain white, and sea blue. The 3 of them collided, covering the moon in the sky. In the battle of the deep sea swordsmen, the final guardian of the sea god temple, water god Tian Wu, was facing 2 peak swordsman experts by himself. Whether he really had the ability, or was just being arrogant, was immediately clear. The 3 swords collided. Above the sea, the 3 sword intents collided. 100-meter wave roared into the sky, shocking the bright moon. Chapter 440. The 3 swords began their battle. The 2 prides teamed up to fight Water God. The sword lights that clashed cut open the waters one after another. The peak of the sword was dazzling. In the mountain and river sword realm, the snow sword's edge was faster than the previous one. Bai's figure flickered continuously. The sword was like flowing light, so fast that it was shocking. On the other hand, Water God's sword guided the waves. The azure sword was overflowing with light as it countered speed with speed. Sword form, remnant red. After fighting for a while, Bai used his sword. In an instant, his speed was even faster, leaving no afterimages. Clanking sounds rang out as the swords clashed. Water God's sword momentum changed. The whirling sword soared into the sky. The waves around it turned into a raging current, blocking the remnant red sword edge. Water God Tian Wu, who had just displayed his sword skills, was unstoppable. He was not at a disadvantage, even when fighting against 2. Hard corner. The 2 swords clashed. Mu Qianshang took advantage of the momentum to retreat 10 feet. One sword refined 1,000 feet of river. The white water was like a waterfall in the ink painting. Seeing this, Tian Wu condensed his qi with his fingers. Vast energy streaked across the sword edge. Suddenly, the blue brilliance was activated. The extreme sword pressure spread out in all directions. The sea within 100 miles was affected. The waves rolled over and over. The spiritual energy converged on the sword. The 2 swords clashed. The raging waves surged endlessly. The shrine shook and the waves rolled over 100 miles away. Ningchen took a step. The water figure flickered several times. The sword edge condensed frost, freezing the sea into ice. The plain white ice domain extended endlessly. The frozen shrine, and the sea water froze. It was difficult to flow. Oh, the water flow was blocked. Tian Wu's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He raised 30% of his qi with the clear divine sword. The sword broke the sea and slashed down. Ningchen focused. He turned his sword. The wind and snow surged as his sword met the attack. With a loud bang, the 2 swords melted. Bai's sword edge slashed across, breaking through the aftermath and rushing forward. Water God's eyes focused. He turned his hand and fingers to block the sword. Following that, the sword edge in his hand slashed out mercilessly. Mu Qianshang did not block or avoid. The snow sword gathered the power of the sword realm and slashed. The clear divine sword pressed forward. Bai arrived in time. The sword edge blocked the sword. They had a tacit understanding. The 2 swords worked together. The snow sword came out and slashed. Water God could not dodge in time. And the clothes on his right shoulder. Not bad. Heavenly Wu waved his hand to stop the bleeding from his shoulder. He stabbed his sword into the ground and opened the sky with his palm, removing the restriction. With a loud explosion, a wave of air blasted away the frozen snow region. Boundless spiritual energy surrounded his body, and the pressure reached a new extreme. You're already so strong, yet you can still increase your strength. Are you still going to let me fight you? Mu Qianshang's eyes turned cold as the aura around his body rose once again. The mountain ink painting quickly spread out, blocking the spirit energy that kept flowing in. Brother Mu, if you're tired, you can rest first. Ningchen replied. The blood patterns on the sword spread out and pierced into his arm. Immediately, a powerful sword pressure filled the air, and he activated another 30% of his yuan power. Huh? Mu Qianshang sneered. Your method of provocation is really vulgar. As long as it's useful. Ningchen replied casually. He channeled his blood qi into his sword and activated his Zhen Yuan. He scattered the sword will around his body, preparing to face an even stronger attack. The clouds are boundless, the world returns to its origin. Heavenly Wu's water god palm slammed into the earth's sword tip. Without a sword, it raged in all directions. The light of the water turned into one color, and a powerful sword aura spread out. Seeing this, the two of them activated their Zhen Yuan at the same time. Their two swords converged and blocked the sword move together. But with a splashing sound, two streaks of blood scattered in the water. The two of them retreated 2 steps back, their mouths red. It's really been a long time since I experienced the feeling of being injured. I still have to thank you for letting me relive this feeling. Mu Qianshang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said indifferently, You're welcome. Ningchen also wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and replied, I'm going to be serious. As for you, do as you wish. While speaking, Mu Qianshang's expression became serious. He clenched his left hand, and a black sword appeared. Soon after, the black and white swords merged together. A terrifying aura erupted, appearing at the peak of the neo-martial realm. Ning Chen's eyes flashed. It seemed that after fighting with the Nether King for 10 years, his friend's improvement was not small. In the next moment, a black and white shadow flashed past. The sword moved the mountains and rivers. A huge force fell from the sky. Tianwu focused and received the sword. But he felt his body sink. His legs sank into the bottom of the sea. The airflow around him instantly destroyed the sea. Strong. Water God praised. He turned his sword to face the attack. Using speed to counter the heavy attack, the black and white swords also turned extremely fast. The fast swords clashed and light shone in all directions. The two swords clashed, sword waves shook the sea. The sword light reached the pinnacle. Between life and death, they clashed at extreme speed, falling into the yellow springs. One sword was fast, the other sword was even faster. It was a battle of life and death. Water and light won. Sword illuminates the 9 heavens. Seeing that his opponent's sword was extraordinary, Water God waved his sword and condensed a move. The sword cut open the sea. The sword illuminated the sky. The moon rose from the sea, and the sword light illuminated the 9 provinces. The move sinking heaven-breaking sea cut open the void and the deep sea. Its terrifying power slashed down. With the ultimate move in front of him, Mu Qianshang took a step and instantly retreated, arriving behind Su Yi. It's up to you. Irresponsibly retreating without the slightest hesitation. Friends with tacit understanding, retreating decisively without any burden. Ningchen seemed to have predicted this. His sword drew the wind. The 4 origin powers of water, fire, wind, and lightning revolved around his sword and met the sword. When the two collided, there was a loud explosion. Both of them retreated at the same time. Unable to bear the backlash, their blood and qi churned violently. A trace of blood flowed down from the corner of their mouths. Brother Mu, how much longer? The battle could not end. Ning Chen wiped the blood from his mouth and asked. From the time we left Alioth, there should be less than 8 hours left. Mu Qianshang said. In that case, we have to hurry up and end this battle. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. The female supreme had only given him 2 days. There was not much time left. One could be shameless, but one could not go back on one's words. Brother Mu, back off a little. Ningchen said softly. Oh. Mu Qianshang's eyes narrowed. Was he going to go all out? Seeing that his friend had made up his mind, Mu Qianshang did not say anything else. He retreated to the side and quietly watched the battle. After the sword art ended, what followed was the real life and death battle. After probing his opponent's strength, Ningchen clenched his left hand. Blood light gathered, and a strange demonic blade appeared. The blade's body was blood-red and piercing. The demonic blade's calamity had reappeared in the world. Feeling the change in the aura of the plain-clothed youth, Tianwu Water God's eyes also became serious. The blue wheel between the sword hilt and the blade spun rapidly. The origin power of the azure dragon was added to the sword. A powerful azure light lingered on the sword. Boundless waves rose in the sea. In the battle, the plain-clothed youth disappeared in the blink of an eye and instantly moved forward. His sword slashed down with great momentum. With a loud explosion, heaven and earth tilted. The two swords collided and a fierce wind rapidly spread. At this time, knowing destiny turned around, and the demonic blade's calamity rapidly appeared. In an instant the blade's light appeared. The blade's speed, the blade's speed, the blade's speed. The blade's destruction broke through the underworld. At the most extreme speed, the destruction was close at hand. It was so fast that one could not even catch its afterimage. The three swords collided loudly. They were as fast as lightning, and as heavy as Mount Tai. Under the deep sea, magnificent sword and saber radiance bloomed. It was an extreme battle between the pinnacle, drawing a path to hell between life and death. Convergence of the sea, sword waves across the vault of heaven. In the battle of extreme speed, Tianwu Water God's ultimate move appeared again. The boundless sea had a line of sky. The sword waves converged and crossed the vault of heaven. The extreme sword was beyond the limit. Heaven and earth cry together, life and death defy fate. Ningchen raised his yuan to guide the move. The sword and saber moved together, drawing a resplendent light. The three swords collided, killing light scattered in all directions. The powerful aftershock surged and roared. Both of them retreated 3 steps, and immediately turned back. In the aftermath of the roaring, faster saber, heavier sword, drawing a more dazzling light. The casualties were at the peak. The killing intent had already appeared. Heaven is not guilty. Earth destruction, mountain destruction. Heaven and earth appeared. The saber and sword were cold and sharp. The crisscrossing saber and sword brilliance cut through the sea and slashed towards the water god. West and east, east and west. Tianwu met the attack. The waves shook the heaven and earth. The divine might shook the universe. The extreme collision broke the limit of the sea and entered the 9 heavens. The terrifying might shocked all living creatures within 1,000 miles. The strongest battle. Once one reached the pinnacle of martial arts, the waves on the sea surged. One saber and one sword shocking the world. 10,000 miles away, the female supreme was quietly watching the battle. The light in her eyes constantly jumped. This child's future was limitless. For a promise from when he was young, he gave up hundreds of years of freedom. It was truly a pity. However, it was precisely because he kept his promise that she was willing to give him the greatest trust. Under the sea, the battle had reached its final stage. Both sides had raised their strength to the limit. The saber and sword fought with the divine edge. The brilliant battle was magnificent and dazzling. The final move was a clash. The saber flew and the sword fell. The blue sword pierced through Su Yi's heart. Su Yi didn't dodge. She waved her hand, and the king of hell appeared, piercing through Tianwu Water God's heart. With a muffled groan, Tianwu Water God's mouth dripped with blood. An inch before his heart, the king of hell stopped. Why? Tianwu looked at Ning Chen's divine sword that couldn't move an inch further, and asked in confusion. Ning Chen pulled out his sword, and retreated half a step. He took out the green tortoiseshell in front of his heart and calmly said, "Your sword stabbed the wrong place." Black tortoise heart armor. Tianwu immediately recognized the green tortoise in Ning Chen's hand. He bitterly smiled and shook his head. So it was this. You've once again made me look at you in a new light. Mu Qianshang walked forward. You're overpraising me. Ning Chen replied. You've misunderstood. I'm saying that your face has once again made me look at you in a new light. Mu Qianshang's tone was full of ridicule. Placing a tortoiseshell in front of his heart was something only a certain person could do. He really was careless in making friends. His bottom line was being challenged again and again. Thank you for the praise. Ning Chen calmly accepted without the slightest embarrassment. I've lost. Speak, why have you come? Tianwu put away his sword and forcefully suppressed the injury in his chest. Ning Chen waved his right hand and put away the 3 swords. Then he flipped his palm and opened the sea. Snowflakes surged and an ice coffin appeared in front of him. I need the Azure Dragon's origin dragon pearl to stabilize her spirit body, Ningchen slowly said. Tianwu walked forward and looked at the woman in the coffin. A moment later, he raised his head and calmly said, "The dragon pearl is gone because it has already taken form." Ningchen narrowed his eyes and quickly understood the meaning behind his words. Killing intent once again surged out of his body. In this life, although he had never liked killing people for no reason, for the sake of the ghost woman, he could throw away all his perseverance. Sensing the killing intent from his good friend, Mu Qianshang stepped forward and pressed his shoulder. Then he looked at the person in front of him and seriously said, "Sir, you can either save her or fight again. However, this time it will really be 2 against 1. Only life and death will be determined." Chapter 441. Mu Qianshang said, his tone as calm as water. There was no threatening aura, but it gave people the most extreme pressure. Between friends, ridicule was ridicule, but friends were willing to risk their lives to accompany each other. The water god's eyes narrowed. "Since I have lost, I will naturally save her. However, if you want to fight again, Tianwu will be happy to accompany you." When Ningchen heard this, the murderous aura around him vanished. He flipped his palm and opened the ice coffin. He bowed respectfully and said, "We were rude just now. Please lend us a hand. We will be eternally grateful." The water god was not a narrow-minded person. Focusing his energy in his eyes, he looked at the sleeping woman in the coffin, and a green light flashed in his eyes. Ghost body of the underworld, such a physique actually still existed in the world. Unfortunately, this woman's life force had already disappeared, and it would be difficult to wake her up. With my strength, I can only stabilize her soul, but waking her up is not something I can do. After a while, the green light in Tianwu's eyes faded as he spoke. "And it's enough." Ningchen sighed. Tianwu did not say anything else, and gathered his energy. Endless life force surged out from his body, turning into a stream that entered the woman's body. The roar of the Azure Dragon could be faintly heard, and the power of the divine spirit stabilized the ghost woman's dissipating soul. In a flash, the water god's aura had weakened by more than 10%. Even a divine spirit's body could not withstand the power of the divine spirit source. Seeing this, Ningchen swiped his finger, and a bloody light flickered. The power of the phoenix's source overflowed and entered the former's body. The phoenix's source entered the body, and the dragon roared and the phoenix cried. The water god's aura gradually stabilized. Phoenix's source? A strange light flashed in Tianwu's eyes. The proud and holy phoenix had actually given its source to a human. Black tortoise phoenix Azure Dragon Heaven's Will. Tianwu flipped his palm and gathered his energy. The green light around him shone again, and a drop of blood flew out. In the bloody light, it entered Tianming's heart. After doing what he had to do, Tianwu withdrew his hand, hiding the exhaustion in his eyes. He slowly said, "Let me remind you, creation is not a power that humans can control. This woman's soul has lost her life force, and there is almost no chance of waking her up. Sir, take care." As soon as she finished speaking, the blue-robed figure gradually dispersed. The water god left and merged into the sea, disappearing without a trace. Ningchen was silent for a moment. He lifted his right hand, and as the wind and snow surged, the ice coffin was sealed again. In the next moment, it melted into the shadow of the phoenix and disappeared. "Let's go," Ningchen said. Then, he turned into a beam of light and left along the path he came from. Mu Qianshang followed and left together. In the Yuheng Holy Land, the female supreme stood quietly. No one except Ruo she dared to take half a step closer to her. At this moment, a brilliant light flashed and 2 figures appeared. They returned in time. "You're back. Let's go." Seeing the plain-clothed young man appear in front of her, Miss Chong didn't ask for the result. "Yes." Ningchen responded softly, activating his martial arts. He transformed into a phoenix and prepared to return with the female supreme. After the Book of Life was stripped away, the body will be weak for a period of time, and we'll need someone to take care of it. Let's go together. Female Chang glanced at the nearby Ruashi and said, Young master. Ruashi stepped forward, her eyes flashing with worry as she whispered. Ningchen nodded. The phoenix body's future path would be even more difficult. Ruashi really wasn't suitable to accompany him. In front of the dragon gate, the two figures looked at each other. Then, they left in plainclothes clothes. Friend, it's time to say goodbye. A faint smile rose on Mu Qianshang's face. Everyone had their own path to walk. A short meeting was already a pleasant surprise. We'll meet again someday. Ningchen smiled and replied. The road ahead may be difficult, but don't give up. Also, your red robes are really ugly. Mu Qianshang's expression was serious. Same here. Your black cloak is also really vulgar. Ningchen didn't give in. Haha. Mu Qianshang chuckled and left. After 2 steps he disappeared. Friend, take care. His final words echoed in the wind. In life, no matter when, one must always get used to parting. Take care. Ningchen looked at his friend leaving and softly said. Since the matter with Yuheng was over, he stayed for a short day. The next day, he left to continue his search. In the previous battle, although he had been deceived by the Yuheng ancestor, he had still sensed the upper limit of the Yuheng divine cauldron. Perhaps it could bring back the living, but it would be difficult to bring back the dead. Where should he go next? A human artifact wouldn't work. But in this world, was there any power that surpassed the limits of humanity? In the imperial palace of Tianshu, Ningchen came as promised. Hong Wulei had woken up. Seeing the red-robed figure in front of him, tears flashed in his eyes. What's there to cry about? It's just a loss. I'll teach you again. You can win it back in the future. Ningchen's tone was indifferent. Hearing this, Hong Wulei wiped away the tears in his eyes. Many years of hardship had tempered his tenacity. At this moment he respectfully bowed, his gaze once again firm. You came at the right time. Half a day ago, the Central Province's Whitefoot Academy sent a letter, inviting you and me to become teachers there. The Yuheng Holy Land should have also received the same letter. Qi Yinxia walked over. Whitefoot Academy? Ningchen frowned slightly. Where was this place? They didn't seem to have any interactions. You go first. Yinxia will explain the details to you. Remember, be careful when you reach Whitefoot Academy. Emperor Qi appeared and said seriously. Ningchen heard the seriousness in Emperor Qi's voice and nodded slightly. Even the emperor of a dynasty was afraid of this place. It seemed that this Whitefoot Academy was not simple. Wulei, let's go. Ningchen glanced at Hong Wulei beside him and said. Hong Wulei nodded, and immediately walked away with him. Seeing the 3 of them leave, Emperor Qi's eyes flashed with a strange light. He didn't know if it was an illusion or something else, but he felt that this girl called Hong Wulei seemed to be somewhat similar to a legendary person. He hoped that they would have a safe journey. What happened to your hair? On the way, Qi Yinxia looked at the white strands in the black hair beside her and asked. Ningchen came back to his senses. Red light flashed around him, and his white hair turned back to black. It's nothing, Ningchen replied. It was just a side effect of the demonic tribulation. He didn't expect that in the end, he would also walk the path of the demonic tribulation. Ningchen looked towards the east. After the battle with the Nether King, Zi had completely disappeared without a trace. For the past 10 years, there had been no news of her. Compared to him, Ziyi's demonic tribulation was more worrying. The demonic qi suppressed by the 1,000 years of Great Xia was extraordinary. Even though Ziyi had been an emperor and had obtained the fortune of a dynasty, it was still difficult for him to suppress the demonic qi that was constantly growing in his body. Qi Yinxia didn't continue to ask after that. She changed the topic and said, The Whitefoot Academy we're going to is one of the inheritances in the Central Plains that we can't provoke. Because on the surface, it already has a supreme venerable and 2 half-venerables. Its hidden strength is even more difficult to estimate. It can be said that it's an extremely powerful force in the Central Plains. What does it have to do with us? Ningchen asked. Qi Yinxia's eyes flashed. She said, It's similar to the 100 Dynasties competition in Nanling. The Northern Plains, Western Buddha, and the Central Plains all have their own competitions. It's just that the times and methods are different. Under normal circumstances, the Whitefoot Academy will send invitations to the top 3 experts in the Central Plains. They rarely send invitations to the other 3 regions. This time, it might be because Lord Ning, you've reached the 30th level of the competition tower. It's really too shocking that you've attracted the attention of the Whitefoot Academy. I'm sorry to have implicated you, Ningchen said slowly. It's not really a burden. The Central Plains is the strongest among the 4 regions. Receiving an invitation from the Whitefoot Academy might not be a bad thing for me, Qi Yinxia said calmly. By the way, Hong Wulei needs an identity. How should we arrange it? Qi Yinxia looked at the girl beside her and asked. Hong Wulei saw Ningchen looking at her. She pointed at herself and gestured a few times. She was speechless and difficult to understand. Ningchen understood and said indifferently, a maid. Qi Yinxia narrowed her eyes and did not say anything. A maid at the 3rd tribulation of the Khanate stage was rare. But it was not unacceptable. The journey was peaceful. The 3 of them did not rush over quickly. The Whitefoot Academy had given them plenty of time. They just needed to go there within 3 months. The invitation written by a sovereign was enough to give them face. But it was also a heavy burden. In this world, there were not many people who dared to go against a sovereign. Unless they had no other choice, no one was willing to become enemies with a terrifying sovereign. Ningchen did not have much respect for sovereigns. He had faced more than one sovereign, and had even fought with sovereigns. However, he did not reject the invitation from the Whitefoot Academy. He had already been to all the places in the Nanling Mountains. Perhaps it was time for him to make a trip to the Central Plains. As the night rose, the 3 of them stopped to rest for a while. Ningchen closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing, gathering energy to heal his injuries. In the battle with the Khanate stage, his phoenix body had been seriously injured. Although he had the help of his main body, he could only temporarily suppress his injuries. Hong Wulei was still practicing his swordsmanship. He repeated the simple moves that Ningchen had taught him before over and over again, persistent and serious. Qi Yinxia looked at the young man in front of her and frowned slightly. How could he be so seriously injured in just a few days? Soon after, Ningchen woke up. He got up and walked to Hong Wulei. He waved his hand and summoned the Yama Divine Sword. He said calmly, "Look good. I'll only teach you once." The sword drew the wind, and the wool came out of the clouds. Before the sword move appeared, the wind and clouds had already moved, and the heaven and earth were solemn. With one sword move, the 9 heavens changed drastically. Everything sank into the 9 continents. The terrifying power rushed out with a roar. In an instant, the void of 1,000 feet suddenly cracked. The supreme sword power shook the 9 heavens and the bright moon. After one move, Ningchen put away his sword and walked back to his original place. Under the moon, Hong Wulei looked at the void in front of him that was still changing. The light in his eyes kept flickering. He seemed to understand something, but there seemed to be more that he did not understand. Do you always teach people like this? Qi Yinxia said slowly, not to mention Hong Wulei. Even she found it very difficult to impart the martial arts way in this manner. As long as it's useful, Ningchen replied calmly. Compared to when Mu Bai taught him to slash people directly with his sword, his method was many times more gentle. It was better to comprehend swordsmanship by oneself. Learning from others' swordsmanship would eventually lead to falling under the sword. Hong Wulei's aptitude and temperament were good. He did not want to mislead others. Chapter 442. The Central Plains was a boundless territory. Empires emerged and hundreds of sects flourished. It had always been the most powerful region among the 5 regions. Bai Lu Academy's invitation and Ji Zun's handwriting were enough to show Bai Lu's sincerity. Ning Chun and Qi Yinxia embarked on their journey to the Central Plains. In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. The 2 appeared in the Central Plains. Red Without Tears accompanied them. The journey was peaceful. The divine prefecture of the eastern region merged, and the world was restored. Glory reappeared. In the past 10 years, geniuses from various sects emerged. The most powerful ones were strong enough to contend with the legendary figures of the older generation. Bailu Academy was located in the southwest of the Central Plains. With their speed, it would take them a few days to arrive. Over the past month, the injuries of the phoenix body had gradually healed. After Qi Yinxia's introduction, Ning Chen had a general understanding of the Central Plains and Bailu Academy. Other than 1 Jizun and 2 half Jizun, Bailu Academy had one more thing that he cared about the most. Heavenly Book Sun Volume. There were 10 volumes of the Heavenly Book. Gods were in chaos, the sun and moon were in motion, and there was no life in heaven and earth. Among them, the chaos had been destroyed. Mu Qingxue had the Xing volume. Heaven, earth, nothingness, and life volumes were with the original body. Luofei had the moon volume. Only the sun volume and God volume had not appeared. Among the 10 volumes of the Heavenly Book, life was the beginning, nothingness was the end, and God was the most respected. Other than these 3 volumes, the other 7 volumes had their own characteristics. The sun volume represented the power of yang in the world, which was the opposite of Luofei's moon volume. The phoenix body was different from the original body. The power of the bloodline was too extreme. It was not easy to cultivate martial arts in the human world. Perhaps the sun volume, which had similar attributes, could improve the phoenix body. However, the news that the sun volume was in Bailu Academy had always been a legend. No one had been able to confirm it. It was common knowledge that no one could defeat a Jizun. Therefore, even if they suspected that there was a heavenly book in Bailu Academy, no one dared to act rashly. The 3 of them continued forward. 2 days later, they had entered the territory of the Mizar Empire. The Central Plains had many outstanding people, and there were as many empires as there were stars in the sky. They were even more prosperous than the Nanling Empire. Due to the existence of the Whitefoot Academy, the Mizar Empire's position was extremely special in the entire Central Plains. Every move they made attracted the attention of many. In White Emperor City, undercurrents were surging. The Mizar dynasty's emperor was nearing the end of his lifespan, and he was growing older with each passing day. The selection of a new emperor was imminent. However, the martial spirit of the Mizar dynasty made the inheritance method of the Mizar dynasty different from other countries. As long as one's ability was outstanding and had a chance of inheriting the throne, they would be bestowed the title of crown prince. In the Mizar dynasty, there were a total of 4 crown princes: the 1st prince, the 4th prince, the 9th prince, and the 13th prince. In the Kaiyang Empire, there was no tradition of having a first son or first son. Instead, they relied on their own abilities to ascend the throne. Of the 4 crown princes, the 4th prince's cultivation was the most shocking. He had reached the peak of the 2nd calamity at such a young age, and he was a true peerless genius. However, the 4th prince was completely engrossed in martial arts, and he had never been interested in the throne. Of the other 3 crown princes, the 1st prince had been managing his faction for the longest time, and he had the most bargaining chips. The 9th prince was extremely intelligent, and he ruled the country well. He also had the support of his mother's bloodline, so his strength could not be underestimated. As for the youngest 13th prince, he was the one with the most outstanding cultivation apart from the 4th prince. He was both courageous and resourceful, and his military exploits were outstanding. He had conquered a lot of territory for the Mizar dynasty. Apart from the factions of the 4 crown princes, the Whitefoot Academy 400 kilometers to the west of White Emperor City was also quite a big variable. The opinions of the Whitefoot Academy had always greatly influenced who the emperor of the Mizar dynasty belonged to. The temptation of the emperor's throne was not something that ordinary people could resist. Apart from the 4th prince, the other 3 crown princes had all returned and were making their final efforts, preparing to fight with everything they had. 3 days later, 10 kilometers to the west of White Emperor City, a young man in purple-red clothes appeared. His face was calm, and he did not seem anxious at all. He carried a sword on his back, and he did not reveal any sword intent. Wherever he walked, leaves would flutter, and they would form swords as they landed. At the same time, 10 kilometers to the east of White Emperor City, 3 figures also walked towards White Emperor City step by step. When the sun was about to set, the city gates were about to close. When the unfamiliar young man appeared at the west gate, the soldiers guarding the city were all surprised and knelt down. "Fourth prince, you can rise," Yixuanmiao responded and continued walking forward. The afterglow of the setting sun scattered across White Emperor City. There were fewer and fewer people on the streets. When the two figures walked past each other, the two swords reacted at the same time. The sword on the sword, the heart of the sword hummed gently. A strange light flashed through the eyes of the two people who walked past each other. However, neither of them looked back, and they walked off into the distance. When the sun was setting in the west, the three of them left the city. The Whitefoot Academy was not far away. 400 kilometers was not unreachable for cultivators. The sun set, and the cold moon rose. The three people who gradually walked away did not stop because of the night. "The young man who just passed by is not simple," Qi Yinxia said. "The fourth prince of the Mizar dynasty, Yixuanmiao," Ning Chen said slowly. "How do you know?" Qi Yinxia frowned slightly. "His sword intent is pure and unyielding. Apart from the legendary fourth prince, there won't be a second person with such a sword," Ning Chen said calmly. Doubt rose in Hong Willing's eyes. Why didn't she sense anything? "I never thought that the fourth prince of the Mizar dynasty would have such shocking attainments in the sword. It looks like the battle for the throne of the Mizar dynasty has become even more complicated," Qi Yinxia said softly. "Being born into the imperial family means that you are destined to be helpless," Ning Chen replied. Yixuanmiao returned to the fourth prince's residence in White Emperor City. 3 letters arrived soon after. The other 3 princes all sent invitations. Yixuanmiao looked at the 3 letters on the table. After reading them one by one, he put them down and said, "Send someone to reply. Tell them that I will visit on time." "Yes." The butler accepted the order and immediately turned to leave. In the quiet crown prince's residence, the candlelight flickered. Yixuanmiao looked at the scenery outside the window. A faint brilliance flashed through his eyes. "Father, what are you thinking about?" The next day, in the middle of the day, 3 people walked to the front of Bailu Academy. After confirming their identities, the elder guarding the gate ignored them. He didn't even ask about Hong Willing's background. After walking 100 steps, Ning Chen glanced at Hong Willing beside him and said, "Willing, when you are free, come and chat with this senior more often." Hong Willing was puzzled. She looked back, but didn't see anything different. "This is a half-venerable. I can teach you sword techniques, but I can't teach you cultivation. As long as this senior is willing to guide you once, it will be enough for you to benefit greatly," Ning Chen said calmly. Hearing this, Hong Willing's eyes were filled with surprise. She immediately nodded and remembered the former's words. "Are you Lord Ning and Miss Qi?" At this moment, a white-clothed young man walked over and asked politely. "Yes." Ning Chen nodded. "The academy head has been waiting for a long time. This way, please," the white-clothed young man said. Ning Chen, Qi Yinxia, and Hong Wuling followed the young man and walked to the east of the academy. A clear spring gurgled as a small pavilion sat on the surface of a lake within a simple and elegant courtyard. Within the pavilion, a beautiful young woman sat silently before a stone table. Her black hair was coiled up to reveal her fair neck, and if it wasn't for the fact that this place was too special, no one would be able to believe that this was the head hall of Whitefoot Academy. Ning Chen looked over and immediately sighed in his heart. There was no need to ask more. This was another human sovereign. Since when were there so many human sovereigns everywhere? "Academy head, Lord Ning and Miss Qi are here," the white-clothed young man said respectfully on the shore of the lake. "Yes, you can leave first," Yixingqiu said calmly. "Yes," the white-clothed young man responded softly and immediately turned to leave. "3 distinguished guests, please come into the pavilion for a chat." Yixingqiu waved her hand. In front of the pavilion, ripples paved the way to the 3 people. Ning Chen stepped on the ripples. His expression didn't change much. Since he was here, he should take things as they came. He didn't have any grievances with this human sovereign. There was no need to be reserved or afraid. As the Empress of Tianshu, Qi Yinxia's experience was different from ordinary people. She also calmly walked up. Among the three of them, only Hong Wulei was seeing a human sovereign for the first time. She couldn't help but feel nervous. Following behind Hong Yi, her heart was filled with vigilance and fear. Sit. A smile appeared on Yi Qingqiu's beautiful face. Thank you, Academy Head. Ning Chen said his thanks, and immediately sat down in front of the stone table. Qi Yanxia also said her thanks and sat down. Facing the sovereign in front of her, a strange light flashed through her eyes. Among the sovereigns of the present age, there were very few women. This academy head was able to obtain the position of sovereign as a woman. It was truly amazing. I've always been curious. You've already opened the stone door to the 31st floor of the competition tower. Why don't you go up? Based on the speed at which you passed through the 30th floor, you should still have energy left. Yi Qingqiu said softly as she poured a cup of tea and pushed it over. Ning Chen accepted the tea and took a sip. It was slightly bitter, but had a sweet aftertaste. After leaving the Marquis estate, he hadn't drunk tea for a long time. Now that he thought about it, it seemed that every time he drank tea, he was scheming against others. I can't obtain the origin jade of the 31st floor. It's useless for me to go up, replied Ning Chen. I see. Yi Qingqiu nodded. So that really was the reason. An overly rational youth really didn't match his age. Academy Head, I also have something I don't understand. Can I ask you? Asked Ning Chen. Please, said Yi Qingqiu. With Whitefoot Academy's foundation, there shouldn't be a lack of teachers. Why did you invite the two of us here? Asked Ning Chen. The academy exists to break the shackles of sex and gather the best points of all schools. In addition, it's easier for young people to communicate with each other. Isn't that right? Smiled Yi Qingqiu. Perhaps. Ning Chen casually replied. The majority of Whitefoot Academy students are disciples of the Central Plains large families or sections. You and Miss Qi only need to teach them once a month. The rest of the time, the academy won't impose any restrictions. After saying that, Yi Qingqiu paused for a moment and poured more tea for the two of them. The academy's students might not be easy to teach. I'm not worried about Miss Qi, but your killing intent is too heavy. I have to remind you that although martial prowess isn't restricted in the academy, it's forbidden to kill others. Don't worry, Academy Head. In truth, I don't like to injure others. I prefer to use virtue to convince others, said Ning Chen calmly as he drank his tea. Chapter 443. Beside the half-moon lake in the Bailu Academy, students sat quietly. In front of them, the red-robed man was teaching. He had been teaching for almost half an hour. A breeze blew and the lotus incense burned out. Ning Chen stopped talking and said lightly, "Class dismissed." After saying that, he walked away without any hesitation. The students looked at each other. Although it was not their first time attending this teacher's class, they still felt uncomfortable every time. Every class was half an hour, which was the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. He started class on time and ended class on time, not 1 second more. Apart from class, it was extremely difficult to find this teacher at any other time. They vaguely heard that this teacher Ning was personally invited by the headmaster. However, no one knew the details. Such a young teacher was rare in the thousands of years of history of the Bailu Academy. In the pavilion in the middle of the lake on the east side of the academy, Yi Qingqiu listened to the report of the white-robed young man and nodded gently. She said, "Okay, I know. You can go back." Yes. The white-robed young man bowed respectfully and immediately turned to leave. On the stone table, steam rose and the fragrance of the tea floated. Yi Qingqiu quietly looked at the tea set in front of her. A faint color flashed through her eyes. 2 months had passed, and the situation was much calmer than she had imagined. However, these students were not people who could stay put. That Ning Chen was also not a person who would resign himself to adversity. The eruption of both sides was not far away. The students of the academy were too proud. Someone needed to teach them a lesson. In this world, among the same generation, only he could completely suppress the sharpness of these students. In front of the half-moon lake, the class ended. In the distance, Qi Yanxia, who had been quietly waiting, walked over. Looking at Ning Chen, who was about to leave, she said softly, "It's over?" Yes. Ningchen nodded and replied. Then let's go, Qi Yinxia said. The two of them left. After a few steps they disappeared. The back mountain of the academy, the primitive land, was also a forbidden area for the students of the academy. Today, the two teachers of the academy had appeared and entered the forbidden area together. Thank you, Qi Yinxia said. It's nothing, Ningchen replied. Beside the sky yin fruit, there is a silver leopard guarding it. It is close to the energy-shaping realm and is extremely fast. Its strength is not weaker than a half-venerable. Both of us have to be careful. Qi Yinxia exhorted. She cultivated the imperial celestial scripture, which was a special technique. The further she cultivated, the easier it was for the vigorous energy in her vital essence to damage her meridians. Especially since she was a woman, she needed to rely on external objects to neutralize the vigorous energy in her body. In the primitive land behind the academy, because it was difficult for people to go there were countless treasures. She had learned about the existence of the heavenly face fruit from the headmaster, but it would be difficult for her to get it alone. Hearing Qi Yinxia's reminder, Ningchen nodded and agreed softly. The path ahead was full of twists and turns, difficult to traverse. Coiling ancient trees towered into the clouds. Ancient vines hung down, cutting off the path ahead. There were also giant eagles that soared into the sky, their wings covering the sun. There were rumors that energy-shaping realm wild beasts existed in the unknown primitive lands of the human world. For thousands of years, very few people dared to step into this place. The Whitefoot Academy had been established for thousands of years, and there had always been primes in charge. The main reason was to prevent energy-shaping realm wild beasts from the primitive lands from coming out and wreaking havoc in the human world. The location of the heavenly face fruit was still some distance away from the deepest part of the primitive lands. Moreover, for thousands of years, the human world and the primitive lands had gradually formed a tacit understanding. Under normal circumstances, the primes would not act rashly. The two of them went deeper and faster, heading straight for the place where the heavenly face fruit grew. After 15 minutes, Ningchen suddenly stopped. He waved his hand to stop Qi Yinxia from moving forward. His eyes looked ahead, and a trace of seriousness flashed across them. It's here. As soon as he finished speaking, a silver light flashed and disappeared in an instant. Before she could react, the silver claw had already come for her life. The sword finger shook the silver claw, and with a clang, Hong Yi retreated 4 steps. She took Qi Yinxia and flew 10 feet away. The foundation of the phoenix body was not as strong as the original body. She did not have the upper hand in the fight against a wild beast that was close to the energy-shaping realm. With a wave of her hand, the King of Hell appeared. The divine weapon was in her hand, and the purple light was activated. The heavy vast essence and the power of the sword were activated. In an instant, the sword pressure spread out like a purple cloud, enveloping everything within 1,000 feet in the sword wind. The heavenly face fruit should be nearby. I'll block it. You go and find it, Ningchen said seriously. Be careful, Qi Yinxia warned. Immediately, she moved gracefully and left the battlefield. The silver leopard roared and turned into a silver light. In an instant, it arrived and blocked the former's path. At the same time, Hong Yi disappeared. Her sword swept past and met the silver leopard's claw head-on. With a bang, dust and sand surged. Hong Yi retreated another 3 steps. Her sword drew the wind, and a sword cut through the air. The silver leopard's figure flashed, avoiding the 100 feet of wild wind. In a flash, its afterimage flashed past, threatening to kill. Competing in speed? I'll take it. As soon as she finished speaking, Hong Yi moved and disappeared. The sword flashed. Extreme speed against extreme speed. A battle of absolute speed. In the ancient lands, the silver light and red light kept colliding. They were so fast that their figures could not be seen. The moment the sword and the silver claw collided, the afterimages dissipated and turned back. Sword style falling sky. The falling sky sword was like a rainbow falling from the 9 heavens. Endless sword rain fell, instantly destroying 100 feet of land. The silver leopard's body was extremely bright. It blocked the falling sword light. It raised its head and roared. Horrifying sound waves spread out, shaking the heavens and the earth. When the sound waves came, Ning Chun waved his sword to block them. With a bang, he retreated several steps. The blood and qi in his body surged violently. Retreat! At this moment, Qi Yinxia appeared and transmitted her voice. Hearing this, Ning Chun's expression turned serious. He stepped forward and leaped into the air. His sword turned into flowing light and broke the mountain. With a loud bang, the mountain rocks flew. Hongyi retreated and disappeared. The silver leopard roared and smashed the huge rock in front of it with its claws. It wanted to chase after them, but it could no longer see them. In the academy, the two people appeared. Qi Yinxia glanced at the person beside her and asked softly, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I just need to rest for a while." Ning Chun calmed down the surging blood and qi in his body and answered. With the current strength of the phoenix body, it was indeed a little difficult to deal with the half-venerable. The gap between the realm and the foundation was too big. After the heaven face fruit is plucked, it will lose its effect soon. I must go into seclusion as soon as possible. Help me take the place of the martial arts class in 2 days, Qi Yinxia said. Okay. Ning Chun nodded. This was a small matter. Qi Yinxia did not say anything more. She left with the heaven face fruit and prepared to go into seclusion to dissolve the energy in her vital essence. Ning Chun also returned to his residence. It was an inconspicuous small courtyard and an inconspicuous small house. It looked a little old. If one did not go in and take a look, no one would think that it was still inhabited. In the small courtyard, Hong Wulei was practicing swordsmanship. When she saw Ning Chun return, she immediately walked forward and bowed respectfully. How's the swordsmanship I taught you? Ning Chun sat on the stone table in the courtyard and asked. Hong Wulei's expression turned serious. She stepped forward and waved her sword. In an instant, a dazzling sword light rushed into the sky, shocking the whole academy. Oh! At the entrance of the academy, the old man guarding the gate opened his eyes and looked at the sword light in the sky. A strange look flashed through his eyes. Not bad. Whether it was talent or temperament, this little girl was much stronger than those children of aristocratic families. In the pavilion in the middle of the lake, Yi Qingqiu's hand that was brewing tea paused. She looked at the sky and narrowed her eyes. It seemed that the Red King's only daughter had inherited her father's outstanding talent. She just did not know if she could surpass her father. However, with the guidance of that young man whose attainments in the sword were astounding, it was hard to say. In the small courtyard, Ning Chun looked at Hong Wulei's sword and nodded slightly. Not bad. Someone would take the place of the martial arts class in 2 days. Miss Qi is in seclusion. In 2 days, you will take her place in the martial arts class, Ning Chun said. Hong Wulei was startled. She knew nothing except killing people. How could she teach others? Think about it yourself. I'm going to rest. After speaking, Ning Chun stood up and walked towards his house. The fight that he had helped Qi Yinxia today was not easy. Previously, in the Divine Land, the heaven and earth were severely damaged. Wild beasts and human warriors did not cultivate easily. It was very difficult for them to reach the innate realm. The 3 disasters were even rarer. In comparison, the heaven and earth of these 4 regions were much more complete. Be it humans or wild beasts, any one of them was as strong as a monster. Oh right, Ning Chun suddenly stopped and looked at Hong Wulei in the courtyard. He reminded her, the college chief has instructed that we cannot hurt people casually in the academy. Therefore, we must be rational in everything. Try not to use violence. We must win people over with virtue. After speaking, Ning Chun walked into the house and closed the door with a bang. He did not show his face again. The next day, Hong Wulei went to the entrance of the academy as usual and chatted with the old man guarding the gate. Although one of them could not talk, and the other only liked to sleep, there was nothing to talk about. Just as Hong Wulei was about to reach the entrance of the academy, the young man in white appeared again and said politely, Miss Hong, the college chief wants to see you. Hong Wulei stopped, and a trace of doubt flashed in her eyes. Why was the college chief looking for her? The young man in white led the way. After arriving at the pavilion in the middle of the lake, he turned and left. Hong Wulei walked into the pavilion in the middle of the lake and looked at the college chief in front of her. She respectfully bowed and immediately stood quietly in front of him. Hong Wulei, is this name given to you by the Red King? I Chingqiu asked. Crack. Hearing the two words Red King, Hong Wulei's body suddenly shook. The stone slab under her feet cracked, and her face unconsciously flashed with murderous intent. Don't be nervous, I have no malice. Sit down and talk. I Chingqiu pressed her delicate hand, and the cracked stone slab in the stone pavilion closed again. Hong Wulei suppressed the waves in her heart and sat in front of the stone table. She looked at the sovereign in front of her with eyes full of doubt. Apart from Ruoxi and that young master, how could anyone know her identity? You have the power of your father's bloodline. Of course, apart from the perfected sovereigns, others can't see it. I Chingqiu explained. When your father was young, he also came here to study. At that time, I wasn't the head of the academy yet. I was just a teacher like your son. I remember that your father was very restless at that time and gave a lot of headaches to the teachers. Of course, later on, your father became more well-behaved. Speaking of which, the college's rule that you can't use force at will was set at that time. Do you know why? Counting up to here, I Chingqiu's eyes flashed with a touch of nostalgia. She raised her head and looked at Hong Wulei in front of her with a smile. Hong Wulei shook her head, indicating that she didn't know. I Chingqiu smiled and said, because your father couldn't beat me. Moreover, at that time, I also liked to use virtue to win people over, just like your young master said. Therefore, your father was very miserable, very miserable. The court head couldn't stand it anymore and set this rule. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.